12 shocking and mysterious discoveries in ancient tombs that even top scientists can't explain. Hello, welcome to the latest video on the Ancient History channel. Today, we're about to embark on a journey that is both chilling and mysterious, exploring 12 horrifying and enigmatic discoveries in ancient tombs that even the world's top scientists couldn't fully explain. Have you ever imagined what secrets lie beneath thousands of years of soil? Some tombs contain mummies with strange features so bizarre that experts were left stunned. There are odd artifacts, undeciphered writings, and mysterious stories that send shivers down your spine. In today's video, I'll take you from the dazzling tombs of Egypt to the secretive crypts of Europe, from discoveries hinting at the spiritual world to scientific phenomena that remain unexplained. And believe me, there will be moments that make you wonder, do humans really understand the full story of their own past? Get ready, keep your eyes wide open, and hold on tight, because what's about to be revealed will leave you both amazed and horrified. Now let's begin with our first discovery. The mysterious trap in a Chinese tomb that buried 80 grave robbers alive. When it comes to East Asian culture, especially ancient China, tomb construction was an extremely serious matter. The ancients believed that the afterlife should be as abundant and prosperous as life itself, so they did not hesitate to bury gold, silver, wealth, and even family heirlooms alongside the deceased. And where there is treasure, sooner or later, it will inevitably invite greedy intruders. To protect eternal rest and safeguard their valuables, many powerful families in ancient China devised all sorts of terrifying traps, some rivaling anything seen in movies. Among these traps, one tomb stands out as the most notorious tomb in China, second only to the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. For nearly 1,000 years, no grave robber had ever entered and survived. The story begins in 1981 in Xiangyang City, Hubei Province. When locals were digging foundations for a new house, they accidentally struck a strange stone tablet. Covered in ancient inscriptions, the tablet suggested that an important tomb lay beneath. Authorities were quickly notified, and an archaeological team immediately began excavations. After just a few layers of soil, a massive tomb emerged, an underground structure dozens of feet deep, dating back to the Five Dynasties period, 907 to 960 AD. The owner was identified as a high-ranking noble, far from ordinary. But what truly horrified everyone was not the tomb's scale, it was the gruesome scene inside. As soon as the entrance was opened, experts saw skeletons scattered among the dry sand. The deeper they excavated, the more bodies they found. In total, about 80 sets of remains were uncovered, some missing limbs, others with jaws frozen open, as if they had died in sheer terror. Surprisingly, the skeletons were of different ages. These were not servants buried with their master, but grave robbers who had perished attempting to break in over nearly a millennium. So what could be inside this tomb to claim the lives of 80 intruders? The answer is chilling. The tomb's walls and ceiling were not made of ordinary earth or stone, but of heated, sun-dried sea sand that was completely non-cohesive. This sand was incredibly light and loose. The moment a hole was dug, it would cascade down like a waterfall. As a result, any thief who dug into the tomb would be trapped under the flowing sand, unable to escape, suffocating, and engulfed by darkness and terror until death. Subsequent robbers would step on the remains of those before them, meeting the same fate. This horrifying cycle repeated for centuries like a deadly loop. You might wonder, if the tomb had such a dangerous sand trap, how did archaeologists excavate it without harm? The answer? By the time the archaeological team began excavating in 1981, the sand had already settled, so the deadly flow no longer occurred. And thanks to the trap's perfect operation over the centuries, the tomb's treasures remained almost entirely untouched until modern excavation. From cultural artifacts, jewelry, and burial objects to rare antiquities, everything had been preserved for a millennium, never touched by thieves. It's terrifying to think that something as seemingly harmless as sand became a lethal trap that claimed the lives of 80 grave robbers. And yet, this very cruelty preserved an invaluable historical treasure. Now imagine stepping into such a tomb. Would you have the courage to move forward, or would you turn back before the sand starts cascading down? Nearly 200-year-old corpse remained eerily intact inside an iron coffin. Imagine one day you're walking past a construction site and suddenly hear that workers have just unearthed an iron coffin. Inside, the body appears fresh, even though it has been buried nearly 200 years. How would you react? It sounds like a scene straight out of a horror movie, right? But this story is entirely true, and it happened right in the heart of New York City in October 2018. It all began when a group of construction workers in Queens accidentally discovered an unusual object buried deep underground. As they dug it up, they were startled to find a heavy, tightly sealed iron coffin. Even hearing that alone already gives a sense that something is off, doesn't it? The real shock, however, started when the coffin was opened. Inside was the body of a young woman, her face and skin remarkably preserved, with every feature still clearly visible. At first, the police believed this might be a victim of a recent homicide. The body was far too perfect, far too fresh compared to what should have decayed over time. Who would have guessed that they were looking at someone who had been dead for nearly 170 years? From there, experts took the body for examination, and the results stunned everyone. The woman had lived in the mid-19th century, died between the ages of 25 and 30, and was African American. Based on her height, about 5 feet 3 inches, and her clothing, they could imagine aspects of her life. She wore a silk nightgown typical of the period, a simple knitted cap, and knee-high stockings, details that told the story of a young woman living in a turbulent era of American history. Remarkably, her body had been carefully prepared before burial. She was thoroughly washed, her hair neatly combed, and gently placed inside the special iron coffin. What baffled scientists the most, however, was that the body showed no traces of embalming. No chemicals, no preservation methods, everything was entirely natural. How then had her body survived nearly 200 years underground without decomposing? The answer appears to lie in the iron coffin itself. Its near-perfect seal prevented the intrusion of air, bacteria, and moisture, the primary agents of decay. As a result, her skin remained intact, allowing doctors to even observe small pockmarks from smallpox on her forehead and chest, which is also believed to have caused her early death. The more researchers investigated, the more fascinated they became by the secret the iron coffin had kept for almost 2 centuries. A nearly perfectly preserved body, a story long buried, and insights into 19th century African American burial practices, all revealed by a chance discovery by construction workers. The strange discovery, inside a 5,000-year-old tomb of a Polish father and son, stuns experts. While excavating an ancient site in the peaceful countryside near the town of Sandomierz in the Świętokrzyski province of Poland, experts from the Provincial Archaeological Authority made a discovery that left them both baffled and eerily fascinated. It was a 5,000-year-old tomb containing a father and his child, a story that far exceeds the imagination of modern humans. You know, when the final layer of soil covering the tomb was brushed aside, the first fragments of bone began to reveal a remarkable relationship. Through advanced analytical techniques and archaeological DNA testing, specialists confirmed that the 2 sets of remains belonged to an adult man and a young child, and, as suspected, they were indeed father and son. Establishing a clear biological relationship after thousands of years is rare enough, but the strangest part lay in what was placed beside them. Right next to the father and son's bones were 2 animal feet, one belonging to a bear, the other to a cow, both charred. Upon closer examination, the archaeological team realized that these were not random bone fragments or leftovers from a feast. On the contrary, they were fully intact feet, complete with anatomical structure, deliberately and carefully placed in the tomb. Archaeologist Elżbieta Sieradzka, who directly participated in the excavation, said the discovery left the team stunned for several minutes. No one expected to find a bear foot and a cow foot buried alongside human remains. What made it even more puzzling was that DNA analysis and bone structure studies showed that the feet were not torn from a meal or part of a typical sacrificial ritual. They appeared to have been carefully selected before burial. This raises a major question that experts are still debating. Why 5,000 years ago did the living bury a bear foot and a cow foot with the deceased father and son? Was this a simple spiritual ritual, or did it represent some form of ancient belief meant to send a message to the afterlife? And, more intriguingly, why were these 2 specific animals chosen? According to archaeologists, these were most likely gifts from the living to the deceased father and son as they entered the afterlife. In ancient cultures, objects placed in graves often symbolized support, protection, or provisions for the needs of the dead in the next world. The bear symbolized strength and protection, while the cow represented abundance and prosperity. Perhaps the living wished for the father to be strong in the afterlife while sending blessings of luck and plenty to the young child. However, because the tomb dates back so far, no written records or ritual traces have been found nearby, leaving the interpretation largely speculative. One thing is certain: the presence of these two charred animal feet opens a mysterious window into the spiritual life of humans 5,000 years ago. So, what do you think these special gifts meant? Could they contain a deeper message that modern humans have yet to decode? Share your thoughts in the comments and see which hypothesis matches yours. The mysterious treasure inside a 2,000-year-old tomb in Vietnam. Have you ever imagined that right beneath your feet, in a place you pass by every day, an entire forgotten world could lie hidden for 2,000 years? If not, the story from the Caputra urban area in Hanoi, Vietnam, in April 2011, provides a vivid example of exactly what that might look like. At that time, a construction company installing a drainage system in Saputra accidentally uncovered two ancient tombs nearly 2,000 years old, along with an old well about 650 feet away. The discovery immediately captured national attention in Vietnam due to its historical significance. Archaeologists were equally thrilled, as the artifacts found would allow them to gain deeper insight into the lives of Vietnam's ancestors. The first tomb was revealed when the excavator bucket hit a row of bricks at a depth of about 6.5 feet, uncovering a thick layer of mud roughly 14 inches covering the tomb floor. Workers stopped immediately and reported the find to the Hanoi Heritage Management Board. As the excavator moved about 5 feet to continue digging, it unexpectedly struck the second tomb's roof, breaking part of it and exposing a mud layer filling nearly 1/3 of the tomb. Archaeologists promptly arrived to survey the site. Initial excavation revealed two tombs, one large and one smaller, shallower. Associate Professor Dr. Nguyen Lun Kung of the Vietnam Archaeological Society, then Deputy Secretary General, noted that even in the first few days, he observed what distinguished these tombs from others. Along the outer edge of the tomb roofs ran rows of locking bricks. Viewed from above, the two tombs resembled fish lying parallel to each other in a northwest-southeast orientation, each with a fin-like brick pattern along its back. Dr. Kong said he had never seen tomb-locking bricks like those found here. In the larger tomb, decorative patterns appeared along the brick edges, including circular motifs resembling coins and diamond-shaped inlays. The smaller tomb mostly featured herringbone patterns, with some diamond inlays. A mystery that remains unsolved is that the large tomb contained 40 ancient Chinese characters, left side representing earth, right side representing wood. Dr. Kwong consulted several sinology experts, not Han Nam specialists, about these characters, but to this day, their meaning remains unknown. During excavation, experts found a total of 28 artifacts in the large tomb: 16 bowls, plates, and ceramic jars with and without glaze, 9 rusted iron nails, a single blue glass bead, a rectangular pale blue stone slab, and a thin bronze bowl, broken into pieces. In the mud at the bottom, they also discovered a layer of charred rice and grains. While cleaning the artifacts, archaeologists uncovered 2 small bowls containing charred rice and grains, some still with stems and part of the husk. The grains were oval to round, measuring about 0.07 to 0.10 inches long to wide ratio. The smaller tomb revealed fewer but rare items. Only 5 ceramic artifacts, including a beautifully crafted chicken-headed ceramic jar with clearly defined comb, eyes, and tail, likely the most valuable item of this excavation. Both tombs contained no traces of wooden coffins or human remains. According to Dr. Kwong, this was due to decomposition over time, as seen in most northern Vietnam burials during the period of Chinese rule. Based on brick size and ceramic features, he concluded that both tombs date back to the 6 Dynasties period, roughly 4th to 6th century CE, with the larger tomb slightly older than the smaller one. The ancient well, located about 650 feet away, had several rows of bricks destroyed by the excavator, but its structure remained largely intact. The bricks inside the well spanned multiple periods, from the 6th century to the 15th century, demonstrating the long-term habitation of the area along the Red River on the outskirts of the old Dai La citadel. Late educator and Hanoi scholar Nguyen Vinh Phuc noted that the area where the tombs and well were found was likely once a town or administrative center of the Jiao Chou region, where many Han-era graves had been discovered. He commented that finding 2 tombs and a well in Saputra was not unusual. Where there are people living, there must also have been water and graves. However, what made this excavation special were the artifacts never before seen in Hanoi, including bronze vessels, iron nails, and rice and grain, all reflecting the rich and prosperous past of the people living there. Now, imagine how many other pieces of history might still lie hidden beneath today's modern structures, waiting to be discovered. The world remains mysterious, and we can never know what secrets lie beneath our feet. 2. Extremely rare silver dragons found in a Xiongnu noble tomb. Imagine someone telling you that in the vast Mongolian steppes, where the only sounds are the howling wind and the distant thundering of horse hooves, there exists a tomb holding secrets for over 2 millennia. Would you believe it? It sounds like a movie plot, but in reality, archaeologists have literally opened such a time portal. What shocked them most, though they tried to remain professionally calm, were 2 incredibly rare silver dragons lying deep within the tomb. The story begins in northern Mongolia, once the heartland of the Xiongnu, a nomadic people renowned both for their martial prowess and their mysterious ways. When a joint team of Chinese and Mongolian archaeologists excavated the area, everyone expected to find only a few pottery shards or minor artifacts. No one anticipated that they had stumbled upon a noble tomb dating back to around 25 CE, so ancient that, if the tomb could speak, it probably would have already collected its retirement pension. The surprise didn't end there. When the tomb lid was opened, the team felt like they had stepped into an ancient general store. Jade belt hooks, exquisite jewelry, wooden cups, horse reins, even a chariot and various weapons. Just by looking at these items, it was clear that the tomb's occupant was no ordinary person, but a wealthy noble who traveled with his treasures to demonstrate his status. But the most remarkable discovery came while the team was busy cataloging the artifacts. In one corner of the tomb lay 2 gleaming objects, quietly waiting. When the dust of centuries was brushed away, they revealed themselves. 2 silver dragon statues gilded with gold, shining as if they had been polished yesterday. Even the archaeologists, normally composed, couldn't hide their amazement. In East Asian culture, dragons symbolize supreme power. To possess 2 intricately crafted silver dragons, down to the horns, eyes, teeth, and scales, indicated not only immense wealth, but also very high social status at the time. And consider this, the Xiongnu were nomadic horse archers. Most would assume they placed little importance on delicate artistic objects, yet these dragons prove otherwise. The Xiongnu were not only formidable on the battlefield, but they also possessed remarkable aesthetic sensibilities and extraordinary metalworking skills. Moreover, archaeologists suggest that these 2 dragon statues might be evidence that the Xiongnu had extensive cultural exchanges with neighboring civilizations. They could have traded with the Chinese or learned techniques from even more distant artistic traditions. Every engraved detail seems to whisper, "We are not only feared warriors, we are also skilled artists." What started as a routine excavation turned into a fascinating story of history, culture, and creativity, revealing a people who once dominated the steppes in more ways than one. Truly remarkable, isn't it? 60 mysterious mummies from the New Kingdom, found in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. When people think of ancient Egypt, they immediately picture the pyramids, the powerful pharaohs, and mysteries that have baffled humanity for thousands of years. But recently, a new archaeological discovery in the Valley of the Kings has once again sent shockwaves through the research community. A team from the University of Basel in Switzerland unexpectedly uncovered a large tomb containing nearly 60 royal mummies, dating back to Egypt's 18th dynasty, the New Kingdom period, roughly 1590 to 1078 BCE. The story began when Egypt's Minister of Antiquities, Mohammed Ibrahim, announced that the team had accessed a tomb carved deep into the cliffs on the west bank of the Nile, over 435 miles south of Cairo. This is the Valley of the Kings, a site ancient Egyptians considered a gateway to the afterlife. where pharaohs and the most powerful nobles secured their eternal journey. Inside the newly discovered tomb, archaeologists found not only mummies, but also a living archive of royal life during the New Kingdom. Wooden coffins were meticulously crafted, and death masks modeled in linen and plaster still retained their original form after more than 3,000 years. Every artifact seemed to tell a story, preserving the identity and status of its occupant. Even more astonishing were the hieroglyphs engraved on clay pots scattered throughout the tomb. They revealed the names and titles of 30 princesses from the lineages of pharaohs Thutmose IV and Amenhotep III, rulers during the peak of Egypt's glory. Among these were two previously unknown princesses, Ta-Imwag-Iz and Neferonebo, whose names had never appeared in any historical record. This discovery not only carries immense archaeological value, but also adds new pieces to the puzzle of ancient Egypt's royal lineage. To grasp the magnitude of this find, it's important to remember that the Valley of the Kings is already one of the largest archaeological treasure troves in the world. Over 500 years, from the 16th to the 11th centuries BCE, Egyptians built tombs here for the highest-ranking rulers. By 2008, archaeologists had discovered 63 tombs, including the largest, which contained 120 chambers, a true underground world where the Egyptians spent decades carving out tombs in preparation for the afterlife. Many will recall the legendary discovery of Pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. That moment turned Luxor and its surroundings into a global tourist destination, a land where even a single grain of sand could hide a 3,000-year-old story. And now, with the excavation of this tomb holding nearly 60 royal mummies, the Valley of the Kings once again affirms its status as an inexhaustible treasure trove. Every new discovery not only amazes archaeologists, but also leaves us in awe of the intelligence, faith, and spiritual strength of ancient Egyptians. Just imagine, beneath a harsh desert, under layers of rock that protected them for 3 millennia, an entire dynasty has lain in silence, waiting for modern humans to find it. How many untold stories might still lie hidden there? How many princesses, princes, or even pharaohs remain asleep? The very thought is enough to stir your curiosity, and as we await the next excavation, who knows what secrets archaeologists will reveal next? Massive treasure found in the tomb of an Aztec king, beneath Templo Mayor. When people think of the Aztec Empire, many immediately picture brave warriors, mysterious rituals, and a civilization both dazzling and delicately balanced between life and the divine. But what you may not know is that among countless stories, the most recent discovery at Templo Mayor, the main temple of ancient Tenochtitlan, might be one of the most astonishing finds in decades. In what was considered the heart of Aztec civilization, a research team from the National Institute of Anthropology and History of Mexico uncovered an enormous and extraordinary treasure: 180 coral branches, 165 bright red starfish, and numerous sacred animals including jaguars, wolves, and eagles, all arranged as if they were actual Aztec warriors. These were not simply animal remains. They were intricately adorned with precious items, appearing ready to step into a sacred battle. Yet the most striking image was that of a jaguar clutching an eagle in its paws, symbolizing the cosmic struggle between two spiritual creatures representing power and authority in the Aztec worldview. A wolf, meanwhile, was equipped like a warrior, with an atlatl spear at its side, small bronze bells tied around its ankles, and a belt decorated with finely carved wooden discs. Every detail astonished scientists, reflecting both the craftsmanship and the solemnity of these ancient rituals. These remarkable treasures were not placed in the tomb haphazardly. Experts believe they were boxed and buried roughly 520 years ago as part of a royal sacrificial ceremony. The Aztecs believed that kings embodied divine power, and preparing them for the afterlife required the most sacred and potent offerings. In Aztec belief, jaguars, wolves, and eagles symbolized courage, strength, and battlefield authority. Spanish records describe funerary rituals for 3 Aztec kings who ruled from 1469 to 1502. According to these accounts, their cremated remains were buried with countless treasures, accompanied by the hearts of sacrificed slaves, ensuring that the kings entered the afterlife with full power and divine escort. Today, these records are illuminated by the Templo Mayor discovery, leading experts to suggest that the treasure may be linked to the tomb of King Ahuitzotl, one of the most powerful Aztec rulers who expanded the empire to its greatest extent. Joyce Marcus, an expert from the University of Michigan, notes that these offerings may reveal key aspects of Aztec cosmology, especially the complex rituals used to sanctify war. For the Aztecs, warfare was not merely territorial, it was a sacred act meant to empower the gods. Therefore, the burial of a king had to reflect that divine authority. This newly excavated treasure is more than a collection of valuable items. It is a spiritual map of an entire civilization. It tells us how the Aztecs viewed the world, how they revered strength, and what they believed awaited beyond the boundary of life. A 1,000-year-old pure gold treasure and 31 sacrificial human remains in the tomb of a Panamanian chief. Deep in the dense jungles of Panama, where most people imagine only wind, soil, and the oral traditions of indigenous people, archaeologists made a discovery that stunned the research world. It was a find that truly changed history. Beneath the seemingly peaceful soil lay a cache of pure gold buried with a tribal chief more than 1,200 years ago. What makes the discovery even more chilling is that this wasn't just the tomb of a single chief. It was also the final resting place of dozens of others, victims of sacrificial rituals from a long-forgotten era. The tomb is located within El Caño Archaeological Park, once considered the ceremonial center of the ancient Cocle tribe. When the archaeological team removed the first layers of soil, they were immediately overwhelmed by the sparkling golden glow from within. It wasn't just one or two items, but an entire treasure trove buried with the chief. There were intricately crafted bracelets, 2 belts made of tiny gold beads, each bead shaped with astonishing precision, crocodile-shaped earrings symbolizing power and sanctity, and gold earrings set with whale teeth. All of these reflected the exceptional status of the person buried there. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Experts also found round gold discs, male and female-shaped earrings, 2 small bells, a skirt made of dog teeth, and notably, a set of flutes crafted from bone. These items were not only valuable in material terms, but also provide critical insight into the ceremonial and religious systems of the time. They indicate that the chief was no ordinary person, but held a position of significant authority, likely overseeing sacred rituals within the tribe. Preliminary assessments suggest the man buried in the tomb was around 30 years old and belonged to the ruling class of the era. However, the number of people buried alongside him remains a mystery. Excavation continues, and each layer of soil uncovers more questions than answers. Dr. Julia Mayo, director of the El Caño organization and lead archaeologist, revealed a detail that sent chills through many. There may have been as many as 31 sacrificial victims buried with the chief. This underscores the immense power and influence he wielded within his community. Even more striking, the chief was buried face down, positioned on top of a woman's body. This arrangement was clearly intentional, carrying ritual or traditional significance that time has long buried. Hearing this, one can't help but wonder, what made a person so revered that an entire treasure of gold and dozens of lives would be buried with him? What rituals took place on that final night before the tomb was sealed? And how many more secrets remain hidden in those deep layers of soil? The journey of discovery is far from over, and each new finding promises even more fascinating stories. Hopefully, experts will soon decode these ancient mysteries. We can only watch closely to see what this 1,200-year-old past will reveal to our modern world next. "3,001 legendary swords guarding a tomb beneath a lake for 2,000 years. Did you know that in ancient China, people held a strange but very earthly belief? The way you lived in life should be mirrored in death. In other words, death had to be prepared for just as carefully as life itself. They believed that if a tomb was strong enough and its treasures abundant, the deceased could continue a prosperous existence in the afterlife, just as they had in the mortal world. From this belief, countless massive tombs were constructed, hidden deep within mountains, beneath lakes, or in remote forests where no one dared to tread. But among them, few are as mysterious as the tomb of King Wu of Wu, famed for the legend of 3,001 swords, guarding it for more than 2 millennia. King Wu, also known as Prince Guang, was the 24th ruler of the state of Wu during the late spring and autumn period. Under his reign served brilliant strategists like Wu Zixu and Sun Wu, the author of The Art of War. For anyone familiar with China's ancient dynasties, Just hearing this evokes a turbulent era of warring states and fierce battles. Despite his power, the state of Wu ultimately fell to Yue, and King Wu died of severe wounds, leaving his great ambitions unfulfilled. In mourning, his son constructed a strong, fortified tomb at the foot of Tiger Hill. But this tomb was no mere burial site. It was a virtually impregnable fortress. According to the Wei Tuyet Shu of ancient China, the tomb was placed under a lake nearly 6.5 feet deep. This body of water served as both a natural barrier and a perfect camouflage, baffling generations of archaeologists who could find nothing. On top of that, the ancients poured mercury, a deadly poison, inside the tomb to preserve the body and deter anyone who might dare approach. What sets King Wu's tomb apart, however, is the legendary 3001 bronze swords said to have been buried around the tomb, forming a circle like an immortal army. Though no one has ever seen them firsthand, ancient descriptions and folklore have made these swords a symbol of mystery and power. One famous story recounts that when King Gujian of Yue, who defeated King Wu, came to visit the site, he suddenly encountered a ferocious tiger near the lake. The struggle was so intense that he had to throw a precious sword into the water to subdue the beast. From that moment, locals called the place Sword Lake, evoking both danger and a thousand-year-old enigma. It wasn't until 1978 that Chinese archaeologists dared to attempt what no one had before, draining the lake. As the water receded and the mud was cleared, a triangular-shaped cave appeared. Just as described in the ancient texts, the tomb's location was finally confirmed. Yet the excitement was short-lived. Excavation proved extremely difficult. The tomb had been submerged for so long, and the mercury inside was so toxic that even the slightest mistake could be fatal. To this day, although the tomb's location is known, most of its secrets remain intact. The 3001 swords, the very symbol of this legend, have only been described in stories. No one has yet confirmed their existence. But that, in fact, is what makes this mystery so fascinating. So, what truly lies beneath that lake? Are the 3001 swords just a legend? Or does an entire metallic army sleep silently under the water for over 2,000 years? And when the tomb is finally opened, how will history be rewritten? What do you think? Should it remain a secret for another 1,000 years? Or should archaeologists continue to unearth it? A 1,700-year-old bottle of wine from an ancient tomb still drinkable today. If there were any artifact that could show time as frozen, a 1,700-year-old Roman wine bottle would surely be a top contender. This bottle was unearthed by archaeologists in a Roman tomb dating to around 325 AD. Inside the same tomb, alongside the intact bottle, were a few broken bottles and the skeletal remains of a man and a woman. Based on the accompanying burial items, experts believe the man held a relatively high status in Roman society at the time. The wine bottle was not merely a grave good, it was prepared for his journey to the afterlife. But what makes this wine bottle legendary is that it has remained unopened for 17 centuries. Just thinking about that gives you chills, right? No one has dared to open it, not because of superstition, but because once the seal is broken, air entering the bottle could instantly damage the liquid inside. That would erase its entire historical, archaeological, and scientific value. According to experts, the bottle holds roughly 50 ounces and is made of yellow-green glass, with a handle shaped like a finely crafted fish. At the bottom, a layer of clear liquid rests beneath a golden-brown mixture, visually stunning and strange, like a liquid treasure preserved by time itself. However, researchers now believe this mixture no longer tastes like wine. Over the millennia, it is transformed into a unique liquid entirely different from its original form. So how did it survive so long? The secret lies in the wax seal used to close the bottle. Today, we typically use corks, which decay over time and allow wine to evaporate. Wax, on the other hand, does not. Thanks to this perfect seal, combined with a thick layer of olive oil on top, a preservation method used by the Romans, the liquid inside was able to survive to this day. Interestingly, while microbiologically the liquid might still be non-toxic, experts agree that its flavor is no longer appealing. In other words, drinking it probably won't kill you, but don't expect a delightful taste experience. Ludger Tecampa, head of the Speyer wine preservation team, admitted that no one really knows exactly what is inside. This uncertainty is what fuels the ongoing debate. Should the bottle be opened or left sealed? Open it and you risk losing history. Leave it closed and curiosity lingers. A true dilemma. Today, this 1,700-year-old Roman wine bottle remains one of the most popular exhibits at the Palatinate Museum. Visitors flock to see this survivor of time in person, and everyone leaves with the same question: what's really inside? What about you? If you had the chance to stand in front of this bottle, would you dare to open it? Or would you let its mystery sleep for another 1,000 years? 17 skeletons in a strange ancient tomb, hidden beneath a pond. Have you ever imagined that right beneath the calm surface of an ordinary pond, there could lie a chilling secret for over 1,000 years? In Tam Quan Mu village, Qiang, Shandong province, China, such a shocking discovery left archaeologists stunned. When the water was drained for cleaning, no one expected that beneath the mud would emerge an ancient tomb spanning about 3,230 square feet, a space large enough to tell a haunting story from ancient times. The moment experts stepped inside, the first thing that gave them goosebumps was the discovery that the tomb's occupant seemed to have brought an entire farm into the grave. They found countless animal bones, poultry, cattle, and even tiny rodent ribs. It was as if the ancient people wanted to recreate everyday life even in the afterlife. But the story did not end there. The more experts examined the layers of soil, the more disturbing the findings became. They uncovered the skeletons of 2 children, a detail that alone caused everyone present to pause in shock. As the excavation expanded, the full truth began to emerge. A total of 17 human skeletons were buried in this mysterious tomb. The remains included men, women, the elderly, and children, as if an entire group had experienced a horrifying event together over 1,000 years ago. The strangest part? There were absolutely no clues to identify these people. No gravestones, no clear burial items, nothing to indicate their social status. Only the silent skeletons remained, lying closely together, as if they had witnessed something no one dared to tell. It is precisely this eerie silence that makes the tomb one of the greatest mysteries in Chinese archaeology. Based on the tomb's construction and burial style, experts can only speculate that it dates back to the late Eastern Han Dynasty, a period marked by turmoil, war, and disease. Were the 17 people victims of a natural disaster, or were they part of some strange ritual? All of it remains speculation, as no concrete evidence can confirm the cause. One thing is certain: this discovery sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. A tomb lying undisturbed beneath a pond for over a millennium, containing human and animal bones and countless unanswered questions. That is what excites and terrifies researchers alike. And it leaves the rest of us wondering, what really happened in that dark space? Why were 17 people buried together? What could have caused a group of people of all ages to meet their final rest in the same place? Were they victims of a major catastrophe, or is there an even deeper secret waiting to be uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think happened in that ancient tomb? 200 elixir pills in an 1,800-year-old ancient tomb. In traditional East Asian culture, tombs and burial practices held great importance, reflecting the belief that a proper interment could bring peace to the living. In China, burial customs were diverse, ranging from single tombs to couple burials and multi-generational family tombs. One of the most notable archaeological discoveries in recent history involves a couple's tomb excavated in Xiangshan, near Nanjing, China, during the 1960s. This tomb dates back to the Eastern Jin Dynasty, 317 to 420 AD, and contained many valuable artifacts, including gilded porcelain plates and gold and silver jewelry. Most remarkable among these findings were over 200 elixir pills placed beside the tomb's occupant. Although the body of the tomb owner had completely decomposed, the epitaph provided invaluable information. The tomb belonged to Wang Bin, a powerful official of the Eastern Jin Dynasty and the uncle of the famous calligrapher Wang Xiji. The woman buried with him was his daughter, Wang Danhu. Wang Danhu was born in 302 AD and died in 360 AD, living to the age of 58. Notably, she had never married, a rare occurrence in ancient times when women typically wed around the age of 16. Experts later verified that the pills in the tomb were a famous type of elixir from the Wei Jin period called wushitan, five-stone powder. Wushitan was originally invented by Zhang Zhongjing, a renowned physician of the late Eastern Han Dynasty, and was initially used to treat common colds. By the Wei Jin period, it had become a highly sought-after elixir among the nobility, believed to prolong life and grant immortality. Users believed that the pills could extend their lifespan. However, using wushitan often caused unusual symptoms, which were later understood as the result of improper consumption. Modern science has since proven that the belief in wushitan's life-extending properties was mistaken. Chemical analysis of the pills revealed that they contained mercury sulfide, an extremely toxic substance. Ingesting mercury sulfide can damage the nervous system, impair reproductive health, and even cause death from heavy metal poisoning. Still, the question remains, did these pills contribute to Wang Danhu's death? This mystery persists, as her body has fully decomposed and can no longer provide definitive answers. However, the presence of the elixir pills in her coffin demonstrates the tomb owner's obsessive belief in wushitan. Experts speculate that Wang Danhu may have been influenced by her father to consume the pills in hopes of achieving immortality, which could also explain why she never married. 12 mysterious archaeological discoveries caught on camera that even top scientists can't explain. The mummified cloud warriors of the Chachapoyas in the Amazon rainforest of Peru. Hidden deep within a burial cave in the Amazon rainforest of northern Peru, archaeologists have discovered a mummy belonging to the Chachapoyas culture, dating from approximately 900 to 1500 AD. Merely hearing about the location is enough to send chills down one's spine, as this region is humid and rainy year-round, conditions that normally cause organic material to decompose rapidly. Yet the paradox lies in the fact that nearly all the remains inside this burial cave are astonishingly well preserved, as if time itself had somehow forgotten this place. According to scientific estimates, this early burial cave has existed for more than 600 years. However, what truly stunned archaeologists was not just its age, but the remarkably advanced mummification techniques of the Chachapoyas people. In the harsh environment of the Amazon rainforest, preserving human bodies for centuries would seem almost unimaginable. For this reason, the Chachapoyas have long been known as the Cloud Warriors, a mysterious tribe, both fearsome and fascinating, that once lived along the Amazon during the medieval period. The Chachapoyas were a highly unusual community compared to other indigenous tribes of South America. According to ancient descriptions, they had fair skin, light-colored hair, and tall physiques. These traits have sparked many controversial theories, including the suggestion that their ancestors may have originated from Europe. Although this hypothesis remains widely debated, there is no denying that the Chachapoyas were formidable warriors. From around 800 to 1500 AD, they expanded their territory from the Amazon rainforest into the Andes Mountains, establishing a considerable regional power. However, the history of this tribe was almost completely erased. When the Inca began their invasion, most evidence related to the Chachapoyas was destroyed. Ironically, the Inca Empire itself later collapsed under the iron heel of the Spanish army in 1512. Even the name Chachapoyas was not what the people called themselves, but rather a name given by the Inca. In the Quechua language, Chachapoyas means cloud warriors, referring to the way this tribe concealed itself within the dense mountain forests, where mist and clouds linger year-round. According to archaeologist Herman Krobera, the discovery of this burial cave carries enormous empirical significance. Until now, archaeologists had never found such a large cremation cave, not only among the Chachapoyas, but among any other tribes in the region. This suggests that the site may have been part of a special funerary ritual, reflecting their profound beliefs about death and the afterlife. Even more striking are the walls surrounding the mummies. They are intricately carved with human faces and images of warriors, arranged in rows like a guarding army. To many observers, these carvings appear to have been created to repel invaders or to ward off sinful spirits daring to enter this sacred place. A nearly 7-foot skeleton in a 5,000-year-old ancient tomb in China. Around 5 millennia ago, during the Neolithic age, people living in what is now Shandong Province, China, were already reaching heights close to 7 feet tall. Just hearing that is enough to send chills down your spine, isn't it? And this is not a legend. It is a real archaeological discovery made by Chinese researchers in recently excavated ancient tombs. The story begins in Xiaojia village, located in Jiangqiu District, Jinan City, the capital of Shandong Province, China. Since 2016, archaeologists have been quietly working at this site, gradually revealing a surprisingly vivid picture of the past. They uncovered the remains of 104 ancient houses, 205 tombs, and 20 sacrificial pits, all belonging to the Longshan culture, a civilization that flourished during the late Neolithic period and was closely associated with the middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River Basin. However, what truly made researchers sit up and take notice was what lay inside the tombs. Among the remains, archaeologists discovered a male skeleton measuring approximately 6 feet 3 inches tall. If this individual had been alive, he may have been even taller. More strikingly, examinations of other tombs revealed not just one, but several additional skeletons standing over 5 feet 11 inches tall. Placed in the context of 5,000 years ago, when the average human height was far shorter than today, such stature is extraordinarily rare. According to Professor Fang Hui, Dean of the School of History and Culture at Shandong University, this exceptional physical size was no coincidence. At the time, agriculture in the Shandong region was already quite advanced. The population had a stable food supply, especially millet, which was the region's primary grain. In addition, they raised pigs, as evidenced by pig bones and teeth found in many of the tombs. This varied, nutrient-rich diet played a significant role in shaping the physical development of the people living there. Another particularly noteworthy detail is that the tallest men were often buried in larger tombs. This suggests they may have belonged to higher social classes, enjoying better living conditions and superior access to food compared to ordinary people. As you can see, height was not merely a biological trait, it also reflected social status. Speaking of tall individuals from Shandong, later history offers a famous example: Confucius. This great philosopher was also a native of Shandong and was recorded as being approximately 6 feet 3 inches tall. Even more interestingly, in modern times, people from Shandong are still known for being taller than the national average. In 2015, the average height of 18-year-old males in Shandong reached about 5 feet 9 inches, noticeably higher than the national average of around 5 feet 7 3/4 inches. Could it be that the giant gene has persisted for thousands of years? Remarkably, it wasn't just the people. The lifestyle of ancient Shandong residents also forces us to rethink our assumptions about the Neolithic age. The remains of their homes show that they lived quite comfortably, with clearly separated bedrooms and kitchens. In 6 large tombs, archaeologists also discovered multicolored pottery and jade artifacts, indicating a highly advanced level of craftsmanship and aesthetic sophistication. According to Wang Fen, head of the Xiaojia excavation team, this area served as a cultural, economic, and political center of northern Shandong around 5,000 years ago. The Xiaojia site originally covered approximately 2.6 million square feet, later expanding to nearly 0.4 square miles. Yet so far, researchers have excavated only about 21,500 square feet, a tiny fraction compared to what still lies hidden beneath the ground. This raises an intriguing question. Beneath the layers of earth, how many more secrets about the giants of ancient Shandong are waiting to be uncovered? And if the entire site were fully excavated, might the history we know today need to be rewritten? Just thinking about it is enough to give you goosebumps, isn't it? The mysterious mummy on the icy peak of a mountain in Mexico. Amid the vast expanse of white ice atop Pico de Orizaba, the highest mountain in Mexico, located about a 5-hour drive from Mexico City, scientists made a discovery chilling enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Deep within layers of ice dozens of feet thick, they found a human body lying completely still, motionless, with no sign of life, as if time itself had pressed the pause button long ago. It was the mummy of a man, discovered at a location approximately 1,000 feet below the mountain's summit. According to local authorities, the victim was around 25 years old and is believed to have died about 15 years ago. What unsettled many people, however, was the fact that the body had been preserved in an almost perfect state, thanks to the snow, ice, and extremely low temperatures at the mountain's peak. A natural mummy, no coffin, no burial ritual, only ice bearing silent witness to a lonely death. As soon as the news broke, speculation spread rapidly. Scientists and the public alike began asking the same questions. Who was this man, and why did he appear atop the roof of Mexico in such a strange condition? One theory suggests that he may have been a passenger in a plane crash that struck Pico de Orizaba in the 1990s. If this hypothesis is correct, his body could have been buried under snow and ice for many years, only to be revealed later as shifting glaciers carried him back into view. But the story does not end there. Many local residents immediately linked this mummy to two other bodies that had been discovered just months earlier, also on Pico de Orizaba. In the past, there had been a legend about three mountaineers who mysteriously disappeared while attempting to climb Mexico's highest peak more than 55 years ago. When two of those mummified bodies were found, many people believed that this newly discovered corpse might be the final missing figure in that unfinished story. The tale certainly sounds dramatic, worthy of a classic snowbound mountain mystery, but experts were quick to point out several inconsistencies. First, the location where this new mummy was found is completely different from the sites where the previous two bodies were discovered. The distance and terrain make it highly unlikely that all three individuals were directly connected. Moreover, the clothing worn by the newly discovered victim further weakens the mountaineer theory. The man was dressed in a white shirt, dress pants, and a gray sweater. And most strangely of all, he was not wearing any shoes. For anyone familiar with ice climbing, that detail alone is enough to raise serious doubts. No one would attempt a dangerous ascent like Pico de Orizaba dressed this way. This attire suggests that he was not a climber and may never have intended to set foot in such a harsh environment at all. For this reason, many researchers believe the man did not reach the mountain by conventional means. At present, the most plausible explanation remains that he was connected to the 1990 plane crash on Pico de Orizaba. In that tragedy, some bodies may have been thrown far from the impact site, falling onto the slopes and becoming buried under ice and snow for many years. Notably, this is already the third mummy discovered on the Pico de Orizaba glacier within just a few short months. Earlier, in March, climbers also found the bodies of two men believed to have gone missing more than 50 years ago after an avalanche. This has led many to believe that climate change and the gradual melting of glaciers are beginning to expose secrets that have been hidden for decades. So who was the young man found frozen on the mountain? An unfortunate airline passenger, or is there still more to the story yet to be revealed? The answer is still under investigation by authorities and scientists alike. One thing is certain: Pico de Orizaba is not just a mountain. It is a keeper of cold, silent stories, waiting patiently for humanity to listen. The beautiful mummy, hidden in a sealed coffin, deep in the forests of Switzerland. The next story takes us back more than 2,000 years, beginning with what seemed like a fairly ordinary excavation in 1903, near the Gentle Limit River in Zurich, Switzerland. At that time, archaeologists uncovered an ancient grave containing the skeleton of a man, surrounded by armor, swords, spears, and shields. Based on these artifacts, it was natural to assume that the burial belonged to a powerful warrior. Strangely enough, however, researchers believe this was only a secondary grave, similar to guardian burials meant to protect a main tomb, somewhat reminiscent of the terracotta army of China, though on a much smaller scale. This raised an obvious question. If this was merely a secondary grave, then where was the primary one? The answer emerged not long afterward, when archaeologists expanded their search and discovered another grave hidden deep within a dense forest, where towering ancient trees blocked out much of the sunlight. Remarkably, this tomb was located only about 260 feet from the secondary grave. When they opened the coffin, placed directly inside a hollow tree, everyone was stunned. Inside lay the body of a noble woman, preserved almost intact, her face peaceful, as if she were merely sleeping. After examination, experts determined that the woman was around 40 years old at the time of her death and belonged to the Celtic people, a prominent civilization in Iron Age Europe. She had been buried in a tree trunk coffin, a distinctive Celtic funerary custom reserved for important members of the tribe. Her body was wrapped in multiple layers of sheepskin garments, astonishingly well preserved over thousands of years. It was this remarkable beauty and state of preservation that led the press to give her a poetic name, the Sleeping Beauty of the Forest. The grave goods buried with her further confirmed her high status. Archaeologists found bronze bracelets, a bronze belt, and most notably, an exquisite necklace made of amber and glass beads. These items were not meant for ordinary people, but clearly indicated that she belonged to the elite, possibly even the royal class of Celtic society. Even more intriguing, dental analysis revealed that she regularly consumed foods rich in sugar and starch. More than 2,000 years ago, such foods were considered luxuries, accessible only to the upper classes. Yet the question that continues to puzzle scientists the most is this: how could her body have been preserved so perfectly? Some hypotheses suggest that the unique environment of the dense forest, combined with natural substances released by ancient trees, may have slowed the process of decomposition. Others believe that the coffin's placement inside a hollow tree created a natural antiseptic environment that protected the body over long periods of time. Of course, these remain only theories, and the true explanation is still an unresolved mystery. What makes this story even more fascinating is its connection to Celtic beliefs. The Celts believed in the immortality of the soul, holding that after death, the soul would leave one body and move into another. Burial inside a hollow tree was thought to allow the soul to receive protection from a sacred tree, making reincarnation easier. Some historians have even suggested that the Celts were among the earliest cultures to recognize a degree of gender equality, although such special burial rites were reserved exclusively for the nobility. It can be said that the discovery of the sleeping beauty of the forest not only shocked the archaeological world, but also opened a door for us to better understand the life, beliefs, and social structure of the ancient Celts. And who knows, beneath the ancient forests of Europe, many similar stories may still be waiting to be uncovered. What do you think about this mystery? Let me know your thoughts by leaving a comment below the video. A 300,000-year-old weapons workshop belonging to a different human species. Just think about it for a moment. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, when we now casually refer to ourselves as modern humans, could there have been others who already knew how to make weapons, select the right wood, repair tools, and even organize a full-scale workshop? If you find that hard to imagine, then come with me to the small town of Schöningen, in the state of Lower Saxony, Germany. What was discovered there may completely change how you think about humanity's distant past. At this site, archaeologists uncovered an extraordinary weapons cache, one that did not belong to Homo sapiens, but to ancient human species that existed long before our direct ancestors appeared. The most shocking detail is the age of this discovery, approximately 300,000 years old. At that time, Homo sapiens was only just beginning to emerge in Africa and was still very far from ever reaching Europe. This alone makes it clear that these sophisticated tools could not have been made by our species. The ancient weapons cache includes around 20 wooden spears and throwing lances, all crafted with remarkable care. These were not random branches snapped off in haste, but the result of deliberate selection, careful shaping, and intentional refinement. The artifacts show that prehistoric humans had a deep understanding of the properties of different types of wood, knowing which woods were best suited for hunting weapons, which could withstand the stress of long-distance throwing, and which were strong enough for powerful thrusting attacks. According to Dr. Dirk, leader of the Lower Saxony State Office for Cultural Heritage, ancient humans living in this area collected large quantities of spruce and pine wood. They did not cut trees at random. Instead, they selected straight, high-quality trunks and transported them to a fixed location to be fashioned into spears and throwing sticks. In other words, this site was not merely a storage area for weapons. It was a true workshop where prehistoric people both manufactured new tools and repaired damaged ones after hunting expeditions. So who were the creators of this 300,000-year-old workshop? That question remains unanswered. While scientists have not yet been able to attribute the site to a single specific species, the Schöningen area has long been known as a place once inhabited by Neanderthals and several other ancient human species within the Homo genus. At that time, Homo sapiens had not yet left Africa, making it impossible for our species to have played any role in this technological achievement. Among ancient human species, Neanderthals are particularly well known for their advanced skills in crafting tools, weapons, and even jewelry, skills that many consider remarkably ahead of their time. They were not limited to working with stone, but also exploited wood in a highly intelligent and systematic way. Notably, Neanderthals even possessed larger brains than modern humans, although their brain structure and cognitive functions differed in certain respects. Because of this, the discovery at Schöningen has forced scientists to reconsider the evolutionary history of humankind. 1,000-year-old teenage mummy reveals the pre-Inca world. Hidden beneath what seemed like undisturbed soil on the outskirts of Lima, Peru, a secret more than a millennium old was suddenly brought back to light. sparking curiosity among archaeologists and history enthusiasts alike. This is the story of a juvenile mummy that had lain silently for over 1,000 years until its discovery on April 24, 2023. It was not a loud or dramatic find, yet it was powerful enough to open a doorway that takes us back in time, into the mysterious world of pre-Inca civilizations. The mummy was found inside an underground tomb, carefully wrapped within a well-organized funerary bundle. What truly surprised scientists was the mummy's remarkably intact state of preservation. According to archaeologist Yomira Huaman, who led the research project at the Cajamarquilla archaeological site, the mummy's condition was assessed as very good. This exceptional preservation has provided a rare opportunity to study in greater depth the daily life, customs, and spiritual beliefs of the ancient people who once lived here. Surrounding the mummy, archaeologists uncovered a wide range of funerary offerings, including pottery, ropes, as well as preserved fragments of skin and hair. Each item was more than a simple burial object. Together, they formed pieces of a narrative describing the rituals used to guide the deceased into the afterlife. Through these artifacts, we gain insight into how ancient peoples understood life and death, and into their deep spiritual worldview. When people think of Peru, they often immediately picture the Inca Empire and the majestic peak of Machu Picchu. However, long before the Inca rose to power, this land was home to many other ancient cultures, notably the Lima and Ichma civilizations. The mummy discovered at Cajamarquilla has been dated to approximately 1,100 to 1,200 years old, meaning it existed long before the height of Inca dominance. This further confirms Cajamarquilla's importance as a living archive of the pre-Inca era. Even more striking is the fact that this teenage mummy was found only about 650 feet away from another mummy previously discovered at Cajamarquilla. In the same area, archaeologists have also uncovered numerous remains of both children and adults. These findings have led to the hypothesis that the site may once have been a significant burial ground, possibly even associated with ancient sacrificial rituals. Cajamarquilla itself is far from a minor site. It was once one of the largest cities of ancient Peru, distinguished by 4 pyramids and numerous structures built from mud bricks. Covering a vast area, Cajamarquilla is considered the second largest mud brick city after Chan Chan, located only about 12 miles from Lima. In its time, it was a thriving commercial center where people from the coastal regions and the Andean highlands gathered to trade goods and exchange cultural influences. For this reason, the discovery of this more than 1,000-year-old mummy not only adds another crucial piece to the historical puzzle of Peru, but also serves as a reminder that beneath every layer of earth, countless untold stories still lie hidden. And who knows, perhaps in the next excavation, yet another secret from the past will be revealed, forcing us to rethink the journey of human development from an entirely new perspective. If that happens, what could be more exciting than that? 3,000-year-old hanging coffins on cliff faces in China. Did you know that amid the sheer rocky mountain ranges of Gongxian, Sichuan Province, China, where thick mist lingers year-round, there exists a sight that sends chills down the spine while stirring deep curiosity? It is the haunting image of ancient wooden coffins suspended in mid-air along nearly vertical cliff faces, as if time itself had left them hanging there. These coffins are not buried underground, nor are they sheltered by tomb roofs. Instead, they are supported by only 2 or 3 wooden beams driven deep into the rock face, defying everything we typically understand about human burial practices. Seen from a distance, they resemble ghostly shadows of the past, silently watching the flow of time. The closer one gets, the heavier the sense of mystery becomes. No one knows exactly how ancient people managed to lift these massive coffins to heights of dozens of feet above the ground using such primitive technology. And the bigger question remains, why did they choose such an extraordinary method of burial in the first place? According to researchers, these hanging coffins belong to the Bo people, a mysterious ancient tribe that once lived in this region but disappeared roughly 400 years ago. They left behind very few traces of their existence, but these cliffside cemeteries stand as the clearest evidence of a truly unique culture. Each coffin was hollowed out from a single large tree trunk, simply crafted yet sturdy enough to withstand harsh weather and the passage of time. What is particularly astonishing is that the coffins do not all date from the same period. Some are as old as 3,000 years, while the most recent ones are still about 400 years old. This means the hanging burial tradition was maintained across many generations, rather than being a short-lived or impulsive practice. So what were the Bo people thinking when they chose to suspend their dead on cliff faces? While no definitive answer exists, many scholars believe this was not merely a burial custom, but a ritual imbued with deep spiritual meaning. In their worldview, high mountains were considered the places closest to the heavens and the gods. Placing the deceased there was believed to protect the soul and help it merge more easily with the supernatural realm. Beyond spiritual beliefs, this burial method also had practical advantages. Hanging coffins high above the ground helped protect the bodies from wild animals, flooding, and moisture, constant threats in mountainous regions. Above all, however, it reflected a profound belief that the souls of the departed would be blessed, remain at peace, and live alongside the mountains through the ages. Standing before these suspended coffins, it is hard not to wonder, do people today, with our skyscrapers and modern cemeteries, truly understand how our ancestors confronted death? The hanging coffins of Gongxian, though now silent remnants, continue to tell a story of reverence, belief, and a longing to connect with the afterlife, belonging to a culture that has long since vanished. And perhaps it is precisely this silence that allows the mystery to endure through time. Giant geoglyphs that defy time in the Peruvian desert. More than 2,000 years ago, under the scorching sun and across the seemingly lifeless arid landscape of the Palpa Desert in Peru, an ancient civilization quietly left behind traces that continue to astonish modern humanity. Not grand palaces or massive stone statues, but enormous drawings stretching across hillsides, lying silently through millennia, as if waiting for someone to decipher the stories they tell. Recently, near the town of Palpa, archaeologists discovered 25 additional ancient geoglyphs believed to have been created by the Paracas people. This discovery not only stunned the scientific community, but also opened a new window through which to re-examine a civilization that once thrived in this harsh environment. What immediately inspires awe is the scale and subject matter of these images. Etched into the barren, rocky ground are figures of a woman, a dancing monkey, mysterious symbols that remain difficult to explain, and most strikingly, an orca, a semi-divine totem in Paracas belief. Unlike the famous Nazca lines, which can only be fully appreciated from the air, the geoglyphs of Palpa possess a distinct character of their own. They were carved directly into hillsides and are large and clear enough to be seen even by observers standing at ground level. This has led many to wonder whether the Paracas intended these images not only for the gods above, but also for people on Earth to see, remember, and reflect upon. The use of modern unmanned aerial technology, drones, played a crucial role in identifying these geoglyphs. By combining aerial perspectives with detailed data, archaeologists were finally able to clearly recognize their full shapes and precise locations. In a sense, modern technology has unexpectedly joined hands with the past, awakening heritage sites that had lain dormant beneath the desert sun and wind for thousands of years. Yet the more we discover, the more questions arise. Why have these images endured so remarkably well, despite the passage of time and the harsh natural environment? Why did the Paracas choose to create such large-scale figures, investing enormous effort and manpower simply to carve them into rock and soil? Were they religious symbols, ritual markers, or messages intended for future generations? To this day, science has no complete answers. What cannot be denied, however, is that these geoglyphs have helped illuminate the rich and mysterious historical tapestry of pre-Columbian Peru. They reveal that the Paracas were not merely a people struggling to survive in extreme conditions, but a society with sophisticated symbolic thinking, deep spiritual beliefs, and an astonishing capacity for social organization. So what story do these giant drawings truly wish to tell? Are they prayers offered to the gods, spiritual maps, or timeless messages left behind by ancient people for us today? As for me, I believe the answer still lies somewhere in the vast Palpa Desert, waiting patiently for the day it is fully revealed. 1,000-year-old sacrificial dog remains in Peru, reveals soul-guiding ritual that shocks archaeologists. Can you believe that beneath the seemingly peaceful grounds of Parque de las Leyendas in Peru, a zoo where children still come to see animals and families stroll on weekends, lies a chilling secret from the past? Hard to imagine, right? But it's true. An archaeological excavation here accidentally opened a window into the past, taking us back roughly 1,000 years to witness a strange and haunting funerary ritual of ancient Peruvians. Specifically, archaeologists discovered an ancient tomb containing not only human remains, but also the bones of approximately 10 dogs buried at the same time, and what sends shivers down one's spine is the condition of these remains. The dogs were not scattered randomly. Their legs were tightly bound, and traces of collars or ties could be seen around their necks. These details suggest that this was far from a typical burial. It was very likely a deliberate sacrificial ritual. The excavation, conducted over the course of a year from 2012 to 2013, yielded results that stunned researchers. In total, 134 human skeletons and more than 138 dog skeletons were uncovered, all dating back about 1,000 years. These numbers indicate that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a repeated cultural practice linked to the Ixma civilization, which thrived in this region from roughly 900 to 1470 CE. What makes this find particularly remarkable is that in most ancient Peruvian cultures, dogs were rarely buried so intimately with humans. They might be buried separately or not participate in funerary rituals at all. Yet among the Ixma, the practice seems entirely different. The dogs were placed alongside the deceased, not in separate cemeteries, as if they played a very special role in the journey to the afterlife. According to researchers, including Lucinita Carrion, the head of the excavation team, the animals were tied to stones with collars around their necks, strongly suggesting that they were sacrificed. But why sacrifice them? This remains the biggest question, with no definitive answer. The most widely accepted hypothesis is that the dogs were regarded as spirit guides, helping the souls of the deceased cross the boundary between life and death and find their way smoothly to the afterlife. From this perspective, what appears to be a cruel ritual actually carries deep spiritual meaning. For the Ixma, dogs were not just domestic animals, they were bridges between two worlds. Sacrificing them may have been seen as a necessary act to ensure that the deceased could complete their journey in the afterlife. To this day, the exact purpose of this ritual remains a mystery, yet one thing is undeniable. This discovery gives us a clearer understanding of the beliefs, customs, and the special relationship between humans and animals in ancient cultures. And who knows, beneath the steps we take today, there may still be countless untold stories quietly waiting under layers of soil and time. Quite likely, don't you think? 2,000-year-old treasure in a Western Han tomb reveals the extraordinary wisdom of ancient China. Some archaeological discoveries are enough to give you goosebumps just by hearing about them, and the story that began on June 23, 1968, is a perfect example. On that day, on the eastern slope of Lingshan Mountain, about 0.9 miles from Mancheng County, Baoding City, Hebei Province, China, a team of engineers from the People's Liberation Army was digging tunnels as part of their routine work. Unexpectedly, just a few shovelfuls into the mountainside, they accidentally opened a door to the past, over 2,000 years ago. Hidden within the mountain was the nearly intact tomb of Prince Jing of Zhongshan, Liu Sheng, a powerful noble of the Western Han dynasty, along with his wife, Lady Do. Liu Sheng passed away in 113 BCE after 42 years of ruling Zhongshan. He was not only famous for his power and wealth, but also for his abundant family life, having 22 children and as many as 120 grandchildren. Naturally, his tomb was constructed on a grand scale, befitting one of the most prominent nobles of his time. What made this tomb particularly remarkable is that both Liu Sheng and his wife were placed in separate caves carved directly into the mountainside. Each cave had two distinct sections, one for the coffin and a larger main chamber to display burial objects. When archaeologists entered, they were faced with a genuine treasure trove. Over 2,700 cultural artifacts were discovered, ranging from exquisitely carved jade, gold-plated bronze censers, to everyday utensils such as pots, kettles, pans, bowls, and various food containers. The sheer quantity and craftsmanship gave the impression that Liu Sheng had only just stepped away, leaving behind a life of luxury still in progress. Yet among all these treasures, one artifact drew particular attention from researchers: a barefooted bronze cauldron. At first glance, the cauldron is elliptical in shape, 7.1 inches tall, 6.8 inches in diameter, with a belly width of roughly 7.9 inches. Not overly large, but extremely eye-catching. Its 3 legs are cast in the shape of squatting bears with smiling faces, full of life and artistry, truly hard to look away from. What makes this cauldron extraordinary, however, is its lid design. The lid has 4 small animal-shaped brackets that lock the body of the cauldron tightly, creating an almost airtight system. This mechanism is reminiscent of a modern pressure cooker. According to Shuowen Jiezi, a Chinese dictionary compiled by Xu Shen in the early 2nd century CE, this type of 3-legged, double-handled bronze cauldron was used for cooking food and holding spices, functioning much like advanced cooking tools today. Now imagine, in an era when metallurgy and manufacturing technology were still extremely limited, ancient craftsmen were able to create a bronze cauldron with such a sophisticated lid-locking mechanism, even capable of sealing tightly with a gasket. Isn't that truly remarkable? Thus, the barefooted bronze cauldron was not just a household item or a burial object. It stands as a vivid testament to the wisdom, creativity, and technical skill of ancient Chinese artisans. In fact, this discovery has prompted scholars to reevaluate the technological achievements of the Western Han period. The Bronze Age treasure, sleeping in the forests of Sweden. Sometimes, a seemingly ordinary walk can unexpectedly turn into a moment that changes history, and the story of Thomas Carlson, a Swedish cartographer, is a perfect example. While wandering through the quiet forests of Sweden, Thomas stumbled upon some unusual objects hidden beneath the soil. Curious, he began to dig to see what lay beneath. At first, he thought they were simply old junk, perhaps items someone had long forgotten. But the more he examined them, the more he realized something was off. These objects were far from rough or broken. Instead, they were exquisitely crafted, with surfaces still remarkably well preserved and sharp, precise details that seemed almost impossible for their age. For a moment, Thomas even suspected they might be modern forgeries buried intentionally. Even without certainty, he did something extremely important. He reported the discovery to the authorities, following Swedish regulations. That decision led to one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries in recent years. Soon, historians and archaeologists from the Cultural Heritage Administration, working with Gothenburg University, arrived at the site. After careful investigation, they reached a conclusion that amazed many. This was an actual Bronze Age treasure. The hoard consisted of approximately 50 artifacts, mostly jewelry and items related to funerary rituals. They date from roughly 750 BCE to 500 BCE and, remarkably, remained almost completely intact after over 2 millennia underground. According to Professor Johan Ling of Gothenburg University, most of the artifacts likely belonged to a high-status woman in ancient society. At that time, Sweden was a major center of metalwork in Scandinavia, home to thousands of skilled craftsmen. Owning such finely made and precious jewelry would have required substantial wealth, indicating that the treasure's owner was not an ordinary person, but likely someone of power or great influence. However, the treasure also raises many intriguing questions. The first is why these valuable objects were buried in the middle of a forest. In ancient Scandinavian customs, ritual offerings or important items were usually buried near lakes or ponds as a mark of respect to the gods. Placing them deep in the forest went against common practice. Adding to the mystery, the hoard included an unusual item, a horsewhip. Notably, this type of whip had previously been found only in Denmark, almost never in Sweden. This detail raises questions about trade, cultural exchange, or even intermarriage between Bronze Age communities in Northern Europe. The 7.5 feet sword and mysterious bronze mirror in a 1,600-year-old Japanese tomb. Hidden beneath the city of Nara, Japan, for over 16 centuries, the Tomio Maruyama burial mound has unexpectedly revealed secrets that have left archaeologists astounded. At the end of November last year, during excavations at the site, researchers discovered 2 extraordinary artifacts: an iron sword over 7.5 feet long and an ancient bronze mirror with an unusual shape. From the very first moment, it was clear these were not ordinary objects. They were keys to understanding the spiritual world of Japan more than 1,600 years ago. The Tomio Maruyama burial mound is believed to have belonged to a noble figure closely connected to the Japanese imperial family in the 4th century CE. It is also one of the largest tombs ever discovered in Japan, built during the Kofun period, a time known for its massive burial mounds and complex political and social networks. The sheer scale of the tomb reflects the high status and power of its occupant. However, what has captured global attention is the enormous sword. This weapon is a Dako-style sword, featuring a wavy, curved blade that resembles traditional knives from Indonesia. At over 7.5 feet in length, it is twice as long as any sword previously found in ancient Japanese tombs. The natural question arises, who could wield such a massive and heavy sword? Archaeologists suggest the answer is likely no one. The Dako sword was not intended for combat. It was a ritual object, placed in the tomb to protect the deceased from malevolent spirits in the metaphysical realm. At that time, people believed the boundary between life and death was fragile, and unseen forces constantly threatened the souls of the dead. Symbolic objects like the giant sword were considered powerful protective talismans. But the sword was not the only remarkable item. In the same tomb, archaeologists discovered an ancient bronze mirror shaped like a shield. According to archaeologist Riku Murase from the Nara City Archaeological Research Center, this mirror likely served a protective function similar to the sword. In ancient Japanese culture, mirrors were not merely reflective tools. They were believed to ward off evil spirits, repel dark forces, and weaken malevolent powers. The combination of the Dako sword and the bronze mirror reveals the deep spiritual beliefs of ancient Japanese society. People believed that even after death, the soul could be disturbed, and supernatural objects were needed to safeguard it. Furthermore, archaeologist Stefan Mader proposed an intriguing theory. The sword's wavy shape may symbolize dragons or serpents, creatures associated with divine power, magic, and spiritual authority in ancient Japanese culture. Viewed this way, the sword was not only a protective tool, but also a symbolic bridge between the living and the spiritual world. It reflected the belief that supernatural forces would guard the deceased and simultaneously affirmed Japan's special place in the cosmic order of the time. Through these artifacts, lying undisturbed for 1,600 years, we gain a glimpse into how ancient people perceived death, the afterlife, and the central role of spiritual belief in their lives. 12 greatest archaeological discoveries in the most unexpected places that shocked the world. Medieval mummy in a lead coffin reveals the bloody secret of an English knight. Did you know? The world is vast and immense, and there are discoveries that suddenly bring history back to life. Not through books, but through flesh, bones, and unfinished stories. More than 40 years ago, beneath the floor of a ruined church in northern England, archaeologists accidentally uncovered one such secret. In the cold crypt of St. Bees Priory, they discovered a wooden coffin lined with lead. Inside lay the nearly intact body of a medieval man. Yes, you heard that right. Not a dry skeleton, but a body preserved so extraordinarily well that anyone who saw it was left speechless. He became known as the St. Bees Man. The excavation took place in 1981 in Cumbria, a remote region where the wind blows year-round and England's history is as thick as the fog. In addition to the mysterious lead-lined coffin, archaeologists also found the remains of a woman buried nearby. However, unlike the man, all of the woman's soft tissue had completely decomposed over time. This detail led researchers to believe that when they opened the lead coffin, they would find only bones. But instead, what lay before them was a tightly wrapped body, its skin and physical form still clearly visible after hundreds of years. The moment must have been both chilling and overwhelming. The reason for this remarkable preservation lay in the lead lining of the coffin itself. Since medieval times, lead had been used to prevent air and bacteria from reaching the body. This nearly sterile environment turned the man into a natural mummy, allowing him to rest undisturbed for centuries. Scientific analysis determined that the man was buried sometime between 1290 and 1500. He died at around 40 years of age, give or take a few years. Even more haunting, however, were the injuries found on his body. Multiple broken ribs, a shattered jaw, and punctured lungs. These wounds indicate that he had endured extreme violence, very likely during a battle or a brutal assault. The final cause of death was identified as air and blood filling the chest cavity, a condition that would have caused a rapid and painful death. At first, the man's identity was a major mystery. Such an elaborate burial would not have been intended for an ordinary person, yet no historical records clearly identified who he was. Nevertheless, the most widely accepted theory among researchers is that he was Sir Anthony de Lucy, an English knight. Historical records state that Sir Anthony de Lucy died in 1368 in what is now Lithuania, during the Northern Crusades. Beginning in the 12th century, Western European Christian kingdoms launched numerous military campaigns aimed at forcing the Baltic, Finnish, and Western Slavic regions to convert to Christianity. Evidence suggests that English forces took part in an attack on the fortress of Kaunas, during which 3 Englishmen were killed. Notably, the injuries recorded for Anthony de Lucy, a shattered jaw and punctured lungs, match strikingly well with those found on the St. Bees man in the lead coffin, making this theory particularly convincing. But what about the woman buried nearby? Her identity is far less clear. Many have speculated that she may have been Anthony de Lucy's wife. However, historical records indicate that his wife later remarried and died in London at over 70 years of age, making it unlikely that she was the woman buried in the crypt. The most plausible theory is that the woman was Maud de Lucy, Anthony's sister, who inherited much of his estate after his death. Their close blood relationship may explain why they were buried near each other, deep within the ancient church. Even so, these conclusions remain hypotheses. The true story is still a mystery. Beneath the cold layers of lead and among the crumbling stone walls, the St. Bees man continues to lie in silence, carrying with him a story of war, identity, and death from a distant age. Mascat's grave, containing 1,000 plague victims, unearthed in the heart of Germany. Beneath the bustling modern life of Nuremberg, Germany, lies a dark memory that seemed buried for centuries. Yet on March 5, 2024, that past suddenly resurfaced when a shocking press release announced that archaeologists had discovered approximately 1,000 human skeletons in mass graves right in the city center. And the number might not stop there, as experts estimate that the total number of bodies in the area could exceed 1,500. This chilling discovery occurred during a survey conducted prior to the construction of new residential developments. As the first layer of soil was removed, skeletons gradually emerged, stacked on top of each other in a way unlike any conventional cemetery. According to Melanie Langbein, a representative of Nuremberg's Heritage Preservation Department, at least 8 mass burial pits were identified, each containing hundreds of bodies. This indicates that the individuals were not interred according to customary rituals, but were buried hastily over a very short period of time. So what could have caused such a large number of deaths at once? The answer almost certainly points to one of history's most terrifying disasters, the plague. At that time, with disease spreading rapidly, the living no longer had the time or resources to perform proper funerals for the dead. As death surged, mass burial became the only option to prevent the epidemic from spreading further. You see, Nuremberg, according to historical records, suffered plague outbreaks roughly every 10 years starting in the 14th century. As a result, accurately dating these skeletons presents a significant challenge. To determine their age, archaeologists used radiocarbon dating. The results showed that some of the mass graves date to roughly the late 1400s to early 1600s. In addition, fragments of pottery and coins from the later part of this period were discovered at the site, further supporting this dating hypothesis. The team also uncovered a historical record from 1634 describing in detail the devastating plague that occurred between 1632 and 1633. This document notes that more than 15,000 people died, and nearly 2,000 of them were buried near the Sebastian Spittal area, an astonishing match to the current excavation site. Based on this evidence, archaeologists concluded that most of the skeletons uncovered likely belonged to victims of that deadly plague outbreak. Julian Decker, head of the company in Terra Veritas overseeing the excavation, said he was completely surprised by the discovery. Prior to this, there had been no indication that graves existed in this location. When the first skeletons appeared, he even considered the possibility that they were casualties of World War II bombings. However, after careful examination, all alternative theories were ruled out. Instead, he believes this could be one of the largest mass graves in Europe, with the total number of bodies potentially reaching 2,000 or more. This discovery not only opens a painful chapter in Nuremberg's history, but also gives us pause for reflection. Epidemics are truly terrifying, aren't they? Just by looking back at the COVID-19 pandemic in recent years, we can begin to understand the haunting experience faced by people in the past. And beneath the ground, thousands of skeletons lie in silence, a cold reminder of the price humanity has paid during its darkest periods. The Marquise of China's mummy remains intact after more than 2 millennia. Some archaeological discoveries are so astonishing that just hearing about them sends shivers down your spine. The story of the mummy of a marquise in China is one such case. Imagine this. After lying deep underground for more than 2,100 years, a human body was unearthed with soft skin, fully articulated joints, intact hair and eyelashes, and internal organs that were nearly undamaged. It almost sounds like a scene from a science fiction movie, but no. This is 100% real, and it stunned scientists around the world. In 2016, researchers officially published a detailed study of the Dai Lady, also known as Xin Jui, a woman who lived during the Han Dynasty between 206 BCE and 220 CE. She was the wife of a powerful marquis and one of the most perfectly preserved mummies ever discovered in human history. Remarkably, Xin Jui's body was not shriveled like typical mummies, but retained the appearance of someone who had just passed away. According to autopsy results, Xin Jui died at approximately 50 years old. She suffered from a number of ailments common among ancient nobility, including diabetes, high blood pressure, liver disease, gallstones, and notably arterial blockages. The immediate cause of death was identified as a heart attack, possibly the oldest documented case of cardiovascular disease in human history. Even in lives of luxury, people of the past were not immune to very modern health problems. The initial discovery occurred in 1971 when workers digging a shelter at Mawangdui Hill in Hunan Province, China, stumbled upon a large ancient tomb. They immediately alerted archaeologists, and the excavation revealed not only Xin Jui's body but also a treasure trove. More than 120 sets of exquisite silk clothing, 182 lacquered artifacts, and hundreds of personal items, including cosmetics and hygiene tools. The tomb also contained 162 small wooden statues representing servants meant to serve her in the afterlife. What particularly challenges scientists is Xin Jui's burial method. Her body was wrapped in 20 layers of silk, placed in a mild acidic solution, and sealed within 4 nested coffins. The entire tomb was then covered with about 5 tons of charcoal and sealed with clay, creating an environment almost completely isolated from air and water. This prevented bacterial growth and preserved the body for thousands of years. Yet, despite extensive analysis, scientists still cannot fully explain why Xin Jui's body remained so perfectly preserved. The combination of silk, chemical solution, nested coffins, charcoal, and clay seems to have created a unique preservation formula that cannot be precisely replicated even today. For these reasons, Xin Jui is not just a mummy, she is one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. A woman who left the world more than 2 millennia ago still seems to whisper to us, humanity may know much about the past, but countless secrets remain unsolved. A 550,000-year-old human tooth discovered in France. Have you ever thought that the history of humankind can sometimes be told through the tiniest of objects? Not a complete skeleton, not a stone tool, not even a footprint pressed into ancient soil, but just a single old chipped tooth lying in silence for hundreds of thousands of years. And yet, this very tooth opens a door, taking us back to the moment when humans first set foot in Europe. At Cana de l'Arago Cave in the town of Taudevel, located in the Eastern Pyrenees National Park in France, archaeologists discovered a human tooth dated to 550,000 years ago. Just the number alone is enough to give you chills. Even more astonishing is that, at that time, Europe was a harsh land, freezing climates and teeming with wild animals. Yet humans had already appeared and found ways to survive. This discovery is considered a crucial piece of evidence, supporting the hypothesis that humans arrived in Europe earlier than previously thought. Before this tooth was found, the oldest traces of humans in Europe were a jawbone unearthed in Germany in 1907, dating to approximately 600,000 years ago. In France, archaeologists had also previously discovered human bones around 100,000 years old. These finds, like scattered puzzle pieces, show that humans were present in Europe very early but lacked continuous evidence to paint a complete picture. What makes this 550,000-year-old tooth even more remarkable is its location. Cana de l'Arago cave was already famous in archaeology after the discovery of the Taudavel man, a Homo erectus, or upright man, dated to about 450,000 years ago. For many years, Taudavel man was considered a landmark in studying prehistoric humans in Europe. However, this newly discovered tooth is 100,000 years older, prompting scientists to reconsider the entire timeline of human evolution in this region. Initial analysis indicates that the tooth belonged to an adult, though the gender remains unknown. After more than 500,000 years, the tooth has suffered some decay, yet it still retains enough characteristics for researchers to extract valuable information. Human remains dated between 500,000 and 800,000 years are extremely rare in Europe. Every discovery, no matter how small, is therefore highly significant. This tooth helps fill a 300,000-year gap in the historical record. Archaeologists hope that, using modern analytical techniques, they can learn more about the biological traits, evolutionary relationships, and survival strategies of Europe's earliest inhabitants. A seemingly ordinary tooth carries within it the story of migration, survival, and the development of our ancestors. It reminds us that history is not always written in grand milestones. Sometimes, a single bone or an ancient tooth is enough to change how we view the past. And who knows? Beneath layers of earth and rock yet to be excavated, there may still be other silent witnesses waiting to be discovered, ready to continue telling the story of humanity's long journey across the earth. The Harpole treasure and the powerful woman forgotten for 1,300 years beneath England. Some tombs, when opened, carry not only the scent of ancient earth and stone, but also stories of power, belief, and human status in the past. The recently discovered tomb in central England is one such case. From a single sparkling gold and garnet necklace, archaeologists were able to trace back in time, revealing the image of a woman with a special status in Anglo-Saxon society over 1,300 years ago. Yes, you heard that correctly. At an archaeological site in the parish of Harpole, Northamptonshire, England, researchers uncovered an ancient necklace dating back approximately 1,300 years, crafted from gold, garnet, and various semi-precious stones. This find was quickly dubbed the Harpole treasure after it was excavated in April and publicly announced in early December. Beyond its aesthetic beauty, the treasure holds immense historical significance, reflecting the role and influence of certain women in early medieval Anglo-Saxon society. According to a research team from the Museum of London Archaeology, the necklace was buried with a woman who died between 630 and 670 CE. In addition to the necklace, archaeologists also discovered a large silver cross, 2 intricately decorated ceramic jars, and a bronze dish, all indicating that the tomb's occupant held a very high status and was respected by her community. She may have been a spiritual leader, a princess, or even an abbess during a period when Christianity was gradually spreading across England. The necklace itself is particularly striking. It consists of 30 gold, garnet, glass, and semi-precious beads, hung adjacently and interspersed with ancient Roman coins. This combination not only reflects wealth, but also demonstrates the wide-reaching trade networks and cultural influences of the period. The jewelry was discovered during an 8-week excavation, and Levente Bense Balaj, who first uncovered the treasure, recounted that he noticed a rectangular central pendant while digging in an ancient rubbish pit at the site, a serendipitous moment that unveiled a whole buried chapter of history. X-ray imaging of the tomb revealed the silver cross decorated with an intricate human face. Organic material within the tomb preserved fragments of hair and skin, indicating that the burial environment once maintained delicate details. The ceramic jars, thought to originate from present-day France or Belgium, further support the hypothesis that this woman had connections beyond England. Researchers hope that molecular analysis of residue inside the jars will clarify their intended purpose. Remarkably, the skeleton in the tomb has almost entirely decomposed, leaving only a few tiny fragments of tooth enamel. However, the necklace and accompanying artifacts allowed archaeologists to confidently identify the tomb's occupant as a woman. In England, only a dozen or so tombs of high-status women have been discovered, and in some cases, similar necklaces were found. Yet, very few graves date earlier than the 7th century, as the Harpole treasure does. So you see, a single tomb, a necklace, and a story of power revealed after more than 1,300 years. From this treasure, we glimpse not only the beauty of gold and gemstones, but also the image of women who once held significant roles in ancient society, women whose contributions were, sadly, forgotten by history. A 500-year-old box exuding sweet fragrance in Norway's ice and the chilling truth behind it. Amid the endless white of northern Europe's snow and ice, something seemingly asleep for eternity emerged, stirring both curiosity and shivers. It wasn't gold or treasure, nor ancient weapons. It was a small wooden box, lying undisturbed for over 5 centuries within a glacier. The strangest part? When opened, it didn't smell of the musty decay of time. Instead, it released a gentle, sweet fragrance, as if the past had just happened yesterday. This wooden box was discovered in June 2021 at the Lendbreen Glacier in Norway, a glacier that is melting day by day. The box, made of pine wood and carefully bound with 2 leather straps, was almost entirely intact after over 500 years beneath the ice. Inside were the remains of a beeswax candle, the kind Vikings once used in their daily lives. You might be wondering, what makes a single candle special enough to be called a treasure? At first, researchers thought it was simply a forgotten box left behind on a journey, but as they analyzed it further, the story became more remarkable. According to the history blog, radiocarbon dating showed the box was made between 1475 and 1635 CE, meaning it had been hidden for 400 to 500 years. More astonishingly, when experts at the Museum of Cultural History in Oslo examined the beeswax, they discovered it still retained its natural sweet scent, an extremely rare phenomenon. Archaeologists believe the box was used by Vikings to store candles, lighting the path from the main farm to summer pastures where they grazed livestock in warmer months. A small detail, yet it opens a window into everyday life centuries ago. Because of this, the small wooden box is considered a research treasure, helping scientists better understand Viking life, habits, and travel routes. However, behind this exciting discovery lies a harsh reality. Since 2011, Lendbreen Glacier has become an archaeological goldmine, not because humans are digging better, but because the ice is melting faster than ever due to climate change. As the ice recedes, ancient Viking routes that were used thousands of years ago are being revealed, along with countless valuable artifacts. At Lendbreen alone, archaeologists have recovered over 6,000 artifacts. In November 2020, nearly 70 arrow shafts, shoes, textiles, and reindeer bones were excavated in the Jotunheimen Mountains, about 240 miles from Oslo. The oldest arrows date back to 4100 BCE, while the youngest artifacts are from the 14th century. Other finds included horseshoes, walking sticks, wooden pins, gloves, and even a small iron knife. Although this sounds like a boon for archaeology, experts are cautious. Archaeologist Regula Gubler warned that as ice melts, organic materials such as wood, leather, textiles, and birch bark deteriorate rapidly. Ice had served as a natural safe, protecting these items for millennia, and once gone, the artifacts' lifespans may be measured in mere decades. All of these discoveries take us back to the Viking Age, roughly 700 to 1100 CE, when Vikings left Scandinavia to sail to England, Ireland, and beyond. Initially welcomed, they later became infamous for raids, plundering, and violent conflicts. The word Viking in Old Norse means pirate, and their first recorded raid in 787 CE began centuries of brutal clashes with the Anglo-Saxons. A small wooden box, a sweet fragrance, yet behind it lies a long story of history, human life, and the high price we now pay for the Earth's changing climate. Chilling, isn't it? The giant stone traps of ancient humans. In the 1920s, during a routine patrol flight over the Middle East, pilots of the Royal Air Force accidentally noticed strange formations stretching across the ground. From the air, they looked like giant kites lying motionless in the deserts of Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. At first, no one understood their purpose. Over time, however, these mysterious kites astonished scientists even more when thousands of similar structures were discovered, spanning the Arabian Peninsula, Sinai, and as far as southeastern Turkey. These were neither drawings nor religious structures. In reality, the desert kites were giant stone traps built thousands of years ago to hunt wild animals. Each kite was an elaborate structure, two low stone walls stretched from afar, gradually converging into a V or funnel shape. At the tip of the kite lay a round pit or earth enclosure, ranging from a few meters to several hundred meters wide. Some stone walls extended for kilometers, demonstrating the ancient builders' deep understanding of animal behavior and terrain. It wasn't until 2011 that a team of Israeli and American archaeologists found irrefutable evidence of these structures' true purpose. At a large pit in northeastern Syria, the endpoint of a kite, they discovered numerous bones of goitered gazelles, hoofed animals once common in the region, dating back to the 4th millennium BCE. This direct evidence confirmed that prehistoric humans used these traps to herd, capture, and slaughter gazelles collectively. The kite-shaped constructions were built as early as 8000 BCE, continuing through 4000 to 2000 BCE, making them older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. The ancient people did not build randomly. They chose flat areas between mountain ridges or dry riverbeds, where wild animals naturally traveled. In some locations, instead of earth enclosures, they dug pits 20 to 50 feet deep with sloping ramps designed to guide animals in. The ramps seemed to allow escape, but in reality, they prevented animals from gaining enough momentum to jump out, trapping them for hunters. So how did ancient humans capture entire herds without jeeps or modern firearms? They had their own methods. Hunting was not done individually. Groups of hunters worked together to drive the herd into the kite's mouth, funneling them toward the narrow end. Exhausted animals would fall into pits or fail to clear the barriers. Then the killing began. Meat was divided, hides removed, and all resources transported back to settlements, a fully organized and calculated hunting process. Surprisingly, this method of hunting goitered gazelles persisted sporadically into the 19th and early 20th centuries. Once abundant across the deserts of the Middle East, these gazelles now survive only in small protected areas, becoming symbols of the changing natural world under human influence. The desert kites, from an aerial mystery to living evidence of ancient ingenuity, reveal the cleverness, intelligence, and survival skills of prehistoric humans. In the harsh desert landscape, they created a stone hunting machine that operated without technology, relying solely on mind and patience, truly a remarkable achievement. Roman skeletons forgotten for thousands of years beneath an English hotel pool. A place once meant for leisure, a hotel swimming pool where guests relaxed after long journeys, was hiding dozens of ancient skeletons beneath its floor. Not just one or two, but the remains of men, women, and even children, lying quietly under the soil for nearly 2,000 years. This is the story of Newington Hotel, located in the Vale Hills area of England. During construction for a new building on the site, workers unexpectedly unearthed a series of skeletons directly beneath the old hotel pool. At first, it seemed like a random discovery, but when archaeologists got involved, the story took a far more intriguing turn. The skeletons were later dated to around 50 BCE, placing them squarely in the Roman period. Scattered around the site, researchers also found fragments of bronze spears, suggesting that this area may have witnessed violence and bloodshed in ancient times. While the scene might sound grim, experts were not entirely surprised. This is because the Newington Hotel had been built next to an ancient cemetery, originally excavated by archaeologist Wenham in the 1950s, one of the first officially documented Roman burial grounds in England. Furthermore, about 1,000 feet from the newly discovered site, excavations conducted in 2004 and 2005 had revealed more than 30 decapitated Roman graves. Many hypothesize that these individuals were gladiators, people forced to entertain the ruling elite of the time. That excavation project lasted 3 months and recorded a total of 75 graves. Notably, most graves were found very shallow, according to the York Archaeological Trust, indicating that many remains had been heavily damaged by medieval plowing and later 19th century construction. In other words, what we see today may be only a small portion of a much larger ancient cemetery. The condition of the skeletons of men found on the hotel grounds is particularly striking. Wenham observed that many showed signs of blunt force trauma, suggesting they had endured severe beatings. Some skeletons even bore marks that appear to be animal bites. Based on the size of the bite marks, Researchers suspect large predators such as lions or bears, animals commonly used in Roman arenas. These details support the idea that this site was once the final resting place for gladiators, men and women forced to die for the entertainment of the elite. From this arises an unsettling question. If the new hotel is completed, would guests be comfortable sleeping above one of England's largest ancient cemeteries? How would you feel knowing that directly beneath your room lie the remains of people who lived and died thousands of years ago? Personally, I would be more than a little spooked. Mysterious Viking ship burial reveals ancient rituals. Did you know that for the Vikings, death was not the end, but the beginning of another voyage, where the ship became the final companion? It was this belief that made a 2019 archaeological discovery in Sweden truly astonishing. Swedish archaeologists excavated at Gamla Uppsala, a sacred site about 46 miles north of Stockholm. At first, they thought they had simply uncovered an ancient buried ship, but as the soil was carefully removed, a surprising truth emerged. Beneath the ship lay human remains, buried with ceremonial care and symbolic meaning. Among the two ships discovered at the burial site, one was nearly intact. Inside were the remains of a man, along with the skeletons of a horse and a dog. This type of burial shows that the ship was not just a means of travel, but also served as a specialized coffin. According to archaeologists, the burial dates from roughly 550 to 1050 CE during the Viking Golden Age. The grave contained numerous valuable grave goods. A sword, spear, shield, and a finely crafted comb were carefully placed alongside the deceased. These items were intended not only for the journey to the afterlife, but also reflected the social status of the individual. For the Vikings, ships were a luxury. Only those with significant power or status could own one, let alone use it for burial. Therefore, researchers believe that the man buried in this ship was far from ordinary. He may have been a leader, a battle-hardened warrior, or a person of great influence. The inclusion of a horse and a dog carries deep symbolism as well. These animals were closely associated with Viking life and warfare, representing loyalty and strength. Swedish archaeologist Anton Seiler described this as one of the rarest and most unique discoveries in the last 50 years. The find has provided valuable insight into Viking funerary customs and their worldview. To date, archaeologists have uncovered roughly 10 ships used for burials, each telling its own story about the person interred within. When people think of Vikings, they often picture fierce warriors and ruthless raiders terrorizing Europe. But Vikings were more than that. They were brave explorers, skilled merchants, capable farmers, and notably, individuals with creativity ahead of their time. Many of their inventions still hold value and influence today. So when I say that the ship at Gamla Uppsala is more than just a grave, that it is a window into a worldview where humans, nature, and the sea were deeply interconnected, I am not exaggerating. I am not. 8 perfectly preserved mummies found in a Lebanese cave. A silent cave, untouched for centuries. No chemical scents, no elaborate mummification rituals, yet inside, it holds bodies so well preserved it is as if time itself forgot to touch them. This is exactly what was discovered in Asi al-Hadath Cave, deep in the Qadisha Valley of northern Lebanon. In July 1990, during what seemed like a routine geological survey, a team of cave researchers unexpectedly discovered 8 human bodies scattered within the cave. But what stunned them was not the number, but the near-perfect preservation of these remains. Initial analysis concluded that these were 8 naturally mummified bodies, showing no evidence of artificial embalming. Experts identified the remains as belonging to 4 children, 3 adult women, a male skull, and an unborn fetus. All were preserved thanks to the cave's unique natural conditions: dry air, extremely low humidity, and a windless environment. This combination had unintentionally turned the cave into a time vault, keeping the human forms intact for nearly 800 years. Among the 8 mummies, the most remarkable is a baby girl who was only about 4 months old at the time of death. Researchers named her Yasmin. She was found lying on her back, her head resting on a smooth stone as if in deep sleep. Yasmin was dressed in 3 layered dresses, a blue one, a beige one underneath, and a darker beige gown on top. She wore earrings and a necklace, small details reflecting the love and care her family gave even in death. Around her body, scientists also discovered symbolic items: a lock of darker hair, a laurel leaf, almonds, walnuts, garlic, and onions. These items were clearly not random. They likely held spiritual significance, intended to protect the soul and ward off evil spirits. Notably, Yasmin was buried next to her mother, following a traditional Lebanese practice where children are placed to the left of the mother. Based on the associated artifacts, researchers determined that these people died and were buried around 1283 CE. All were members of the Maronite community, an ancient Christian group in Lebanon. The discovery of these naturally preserved mummies indicates that the cave was not merely a temporary shelter at that time, but may have served as a safe living and refuge space for the Maronites during a period of historical upheaval. Today, all 8 mummies have been transferred to the National Museum of Beirut for preservation and display. Experts employ strict measures to maintain the nearly 800-year-old remains, as even a slight change in temperature or humidity could cause rapid deterioration. If you ever have the chance, visiting the museum to see these remarkable mummies is an experience not to be missed. The mummy of the Altai princess carries a terrifying curse. In 1993, an expedition led by Novosibirsk archaeologist Natalia Polosmak uncovered an ancient tomb on a mound in the Ukok Plateau in southern Altai Mountains, near the border with Mongolia. Upon excavation, they discovered the mummy of the Altai princess. According to experts, the Altai princess was a woman who died around 2,500 years ago. Remarkably, her body was well preserved, providing scientists with invaluable insights into her life and death. Examinations revealed that she died in her early 20s. She suffered from breast cancer, which afflicted her for approximately 5 to 7 years. In addition, it appears that 3 to 5 months before her death, she fell from a horse, sustaining serious injuries to the head that affected her brain. As a result, during her final months, she was bedridden and unable to move independently. The Altai princess was buried alongside 6 horses, fully equipped with saddles and harnesses. Archaeologists also discovered the remains of 2 warriors, believed to be Pazyryk people, a nomadic tribe described by Greek historian Herodotus in the 5th century BCE. This suggests that the Altai princess came from a powerful and wealthy family, likely a princess or the daughter of a tribal leader. In September 2012, the mummy was transferred to the National Museum of Gorno-Altaysk, named after Anokin, after being preserved for years at the Novosibirsk Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography. Interestingly, while scientists work to unlock the mysteries of this 2,500-year-old mummy, many locals in Altai believe the Altai princess is their ancestor. Folklore holds that she sacrificed herself to protect the land from evil spirits. Locals also believe that disturbing her tomb angered her spirit, triggering natural disasters. For example, on September 27, 2003, a 6.6 magnitude earthquake struck Altai. Another strong earthquake shook the region on July 31, 2012. Many attribute these disasters to the curse of the Altai princess, believing she caused them to avenge the disturbance of her resting place. Scientists, however, have not been able to confirm whether the curse is real or merely coincidental. What do you think? Should ancient mummies like the Altai princess be excavated, or should they remain undisturbed? Could these mummies truly carry sacred or even terrifying curses? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The mysterious traces of a hominin. Have you ever thought that the story of human origins has already been fully written? That all of us are merely descendants of a single lineage from Africa? If you still believe that, a shocking discovery from the Altai Mountains in Russia, where ancient soil layers deep within a cave have preserved secrets for tens of thousands of years, might make you think again. At Denisova Cave, one of the world's most famous archaeological sites in the Altai region, Russian paleoanthropologists uncovered evidence of a prehistoric human species never known before. When they analyzed DNA extracted from the remains, an unexpected revelation emerged. 17% of the genome matched Neanderthals, but more importantly, 4% came from an unidentified hominin species, one that had never appeared in any fossil record. It was as if humanity had just been introduced to a new, mysterious, and elusive character in its evolutionary lineage. This discovery compelled scientists to return to the site, excavating deeper, older layers in hopes of piecing together the missing fragments of human history. And then another surprise emerged. During DNA analysis, researchers found that 6% of the Denisovan genome matched modern Southeast Asian populations, a truly astonishing finding. How could genetic traces from an ancient population in Siberian mountains persist in the DNA of people thousands of miles away in Southeast Asia? This could only have happened if Denisovans migrated or interbred with the ancestors of modern Asians, leaving a permanent genetic mark in the human lineage. From this evidence, academician Anatoly Derevyanko, head of the research team, reached a bold but well-supported conclusion. Denisovans were a subspecies of modern humans. They were not an anomaly or an evolutionary outlier. They were an independent branch that contributed to the formation of today's humans. The story doesn't end there. In a nearby cave, archaeologists also found Neanderthal remains, living at the same time as Denisovans. This challenges the long-held belief that Neanderthals did not inhabit regions that far east. Not only did these groups live near each other, but genetic evidence shows that they interbred, producing hybrid generations, a process researchers describe as interbreeding between human groups, which is now recognized as an essential part of human evolutionary history. From all these discoveries, a new understanding of human origins has emerged. It is no longer simply a journey from Africa to the rest of the world, as the once dominant monocentric theory suggested. Instead, Derevyanko proposed a polycentric theory. At least 4 parallel evolutionary lineages contributed to modern humans. First, African Homo sapiens, then Neanderthals in Eurasia, followed by Denisovans in the Altai, and finally, an Eastern human group, the ancestors of modern Chinese populations. This theory is not just academic, it changes how we view ourselves, highlighting the complexity, diversity, and genetic intermixing present in every human cell. The discovery of Denisovans is considered the second most important finding in science after the Higgs boson, as it not only reveals a previously unknown branch of humanity, but also reshapes the scientific understanding of human formation. In recognition of this work, on June 12, 2013, academician Anatoly Derevyanko was awarded the State Prize of the Russian Federation for his outstanding contributions in opening an entirely new chapter of ancient history. So, what do you think? Could it be that humanity does not come from a single origin, but rather from a far more complex story, where different lineages of blood intersected in the shadows of prehistory? Share your thoughts below. 12 mysterious and most terrifying archaeological discoveries in the world. 2 skeletons reveal a forgotten history beneath the Amazon soil. My friend, have you ever thought that a single strike of a shovel into the ground could touch a past that is thousands of years old? If you haven't, then come with me to the vast Amazon rainforest of Brazil, a place where dense vegetation blocks out the sunlight and history still lies motionless beneath thick layers of soil. Because it was here that an unexpected moment occurred, sending chills down everyone's spine. It wasn't treasure hunters, nor a professional expedition, but ordinary road construction workers who opened the door to an ancient human secret. The story began along Highway BR 470, on the stretch passing through the urban area of Ihota, in the state of Santa Catarina, Brazil. Like many other transportation projects, the road was undergoing routine expansion. Everything seemed normal, until heavy machinery dug down to a depth of about 2 feet. At that moment, the workers suddenly discovered 2 human skeletons lying silently in the excavation pit. What was most striking was how unusually well preserved the remains were, especially the bright white teeth, clearly visible, almost as if they were grinning up from the pitch-dark earth. Needless to say, the scene sent chills down the spine of everyone who witnessed it. Of course, this sense of horror did not come from imagination, but from the astonishing way nature had preserved the remains. After thousands of years, the bones showed almost no signs of deterioration, and the teeth were still intact and strong. This immediately led authorities to secure the site and call in archaeologists to take over. The excavation process was carried out with extreme care, each layer of soil slowly removed, as if engaging in a quiet conversation with the past. The 2 skeletons were then transported to the laboratory of the Tubarão company for analysis. At that time, a multinational research team participated in the examination, and the results quickly captured the attention of the scientific community. The 2 individuals were identified as members of the Jikwabu tribe, one of the indigenous communities that once lived deep within the Amazon rainforest. Their time of death was estimated to be at least 5,880 years ago, nearly 4,000 years before Christ, BC. This figure alone makes it clear that Amazonian history is far older than what is commonly discussed. According to archaeologist Valdir Luis Schwengbe of Santa Catarina University, the location where the two individuals died presents several unusual features. They were found at a relatively shallow depth, with no signs of elaborate burial practices. These details suggest that they may have died in isolation, possibly due to a lack of drinking water, and researchers cannot rule out the possibility that this was part of an ancient ritual. Unfortunately, the nature of that ritual remains a major mystery and continues to spark debate among scholars. Another crucial clue lies in the nearly perfect condition of their teeth. By analyzing tooth enamel and wear patterns, scientists determined that the ancient Jakwabu diet consisted primarily of fish. This aligns perfectly with the Amazon environment, where rivers are abundant and aquatic resources are extremely rich. Beyond the two individuals themselves, this discovery serves as evidence that Amazonian tribes emerged very early in human history. These communities are believed to have begun settling in the region around 10,000 years ago, reaching their golden age in the early 1200s AD, with an estimated population of up to 1 million people. Within the Amazon rainforest, there may have once been around 1,500 small villages, and remarkably, about two-thirds of them have yet to be discovered. However, history also has its cruel turning points. Between 1250 and 1500, waves of European migration into the region led to the rapid decline of indigenous tribes. Diseases brought by Europeans are believed to have been the primary cause of the dramatic population collapse, pushing many communities to the brink of extinction. Recognizing the immense value of the newly discovered remains, Brazilian authorities decided to adjust the BR-470 road expansion project. The excavation area was fenced off and converted into a protected site for education and research purposes. You see, from just two anonymous skeletons buried beneath the earth, an entire chapter of Amazonian history has been awakened. Fascinating, isn't it? It just goes to show that the past is never truly asleep. 2,500-year-old teenage remains preserved beneath a bog reveal the history of Northern Ireland. Did you know that some places, which appear to be nothing more than desolate boglands filled with thick black mud, are actually hiding sorrowful stories that stretch back thousands of years? Balic Sea, a peat bog region in Northern Ireland, is one such place. It has recently spoken as an ancient past emerged from the cold, muddy ground, leaving the scientific community stunned. Back in October of last year, during an inspection of the Balic Sea bog, the Police Service of Northern Ireland discovered human bone fragments mixed within the peat. At first, many feared the remains might be connected to a modern criminal case. However, once archaeologists became involved, the story quickly took a very different turn, one that was far deeper and far more ancient. After careful analysis, experts determined that these were not the remains of a modern individual, but the bones of someone who had lived thousands of years ago. According to Inspector Nikki Dehan, although the exact cause of death has yet to be determined, the state of preservation of the remains is considered exceptionally good compared to many bog bodies previously discovered. Remarkably, the findings included not only bones, but also portions of skin, a left fingernail, toenails, and possibly even a remaining kidney. This indicates that the peat bog environment had frozen time in an extraordinary way. However, the discovery is also surrounded by mystery. The skull is missing and the bones were not found intact but scattered throughout the bog. Further analysis suggests that the remains likely belong to a male teenager, estimated to be between 13 and 17 years old, an age so young that it has led many to ask, what happened to this boy in such a remote bog thousands of years ago? What makes this discovery particularly significant is the method used to determine its age. Archaeologists applied radiocarbon dating, and the results indicate that the teenager died approximately 2,000 to 2,500 years ago, during the Iron Age. Notably, this marks the first time radiocarbon dating has been used on bog remains in Northern Ireland, representing a major advancement in regional archaeological research. The research team then conducted further surveys using high-resolution ground-penetrating radar. This technology allowed them to accurately determine the location and depth of the remains, revealing that the bone fragments were found at a depth of about 3.3 feet below the current surface. The bones appeared among fossilized tree remains, raising the hypothesis that the teenager may have died and been buried in an area that was once grassland or shrubland, or possibly was gradually washed into the bog over time. And as it turns out, this very geological context significantly increases the value of the discovery. The boglands north of Lough Neagh were heavily shaped by glacial activity in the past, creating a uniquely rich archaeological landscape. Every layer of mud and every fossilized tree trunk serves as a clue, helping scientists trace their way back through time. At present, experts are working closely with the National Museum's Northern Ireland to preserve and continue studying these invaluable remains. Archaeologists hope that, from this anonymous teenager lying beneath the cold peat, the ancient history of Northern Ireland will gradually come into sharper focus, while also contributing important pieces to the broader study of bog bodies across Europe. Although the exact identity of the teenage boy and the reason he died and was buried in such a mysterious place may never be fully known, his skeleton alone is enough to tell the story of an entire lost era, isn't it? 8,400-year-old dog remains shock Sweden. There is a truth that may sound quite ordinary at first, but when we look deeper into the distant past, it leaves many people speechless. The friendship between humans and dogs began tens of thousands of years ago. Yes, you heard that right. Humans did not only befriend dogs in modern times. This bond was formed tens of thousands of years ago, and clear evidence of that deep connection has now been awakened from the cold ground of Sweden, where an ancient dog lay undisturbed for more than 8 millennia, waiting for the day it could tell its story. The story begins in September 2020, when Swedish archaeologists discovered an ancient burial site dating back to the Stone Age. Inside the grave, they found not only human remains, but also the remains of a dog more than 8,400 years old, buried alongside the deceased. This was no coincidence. It reflects an ancient burial tradition known as placing grave goods, in which the living buried items of value or strong emotional significance with the dead. In this case, the dog was very likely the individual's closest companion, sent to the afterlife together with the owner of the grave. What is even more remarkable is that, upon analyzing the skeleton, scientists quickly realized that this dog did not resemble any modern breed. Instead, its bone structure revealed a powerful hunting dog with a sturdy build, displaying many characteristics of wild canines that had been domesticated by humans at a very early stage. These traces suggest that thousands of years ago, humans did not raise dogs solely to assist with hunting, but also regarded them as an integral part of their emotional and spiritual lives. For this reason, the discovery of the dog's remains in the large area near the town of Sölvesborg, Sweden, not only provides new insight into the relationship between humans and dogs, but also marks one of the largest archaeological excavations ever carried out in this region. Layer by layer, the soil was carefully removed. Every bone fragment was meticulously documented. All of this helped reconstruct a vivid picture of daily life during the Stone Age. But the story does not end there. Also in early September 2020, an international research team announced an even more astonishing discovery. The remains of a dog dated to between 14,000 and 20,000 years old. This period represents a very early stage in the development of the human-dog relationship and may even mark one of the very first milestones in the domestication process. Experts from the University of Siena in Italy stated that they place great expectations on this discovery. According to them, these ancient bones may help answer a fundamental question. How did a wild carnivorous animal gradually become a loyal companion, living side by side with humans for thousands of years? This transformation was not only biological, but also an emotional journey of growing attachment. In particular, finding evidence of the earliest dogs living alongside humans as companions opens up an entirely new direction of research. The remains of a teenage girl who was a hybrid of two different human species. Our Earth is full of mysteries. There are stories that have remained unsolved for thousands of years, and there are others that, even when heard only once, are enough to make us question the very origins of ourselves. The story of the remains of a 13-year-old girl found in an ancient cave in Siberia, Russia, is one such case. From just a few small bone fragments, scientists opened the door to a shocking truth. This girl was a direct hybrid between two different ancient human species. The discovery was made by a multinational archaeological team during an excavation in an ancient cave deep within the frozen region of Siberia. At first, the bones that were found did not appear particularly remarkable, just scattered fragments of long bones. Yet from these seemingly anonymous remains, a story unlike any other in human history gradually emerged. Through an extremely detailed DNA analysis of the remains, scientists confirmed that this is the first direct evidence of a true hybrid child between two different species within the human genus, known as Homo. The girl's father belonged to the Denisovan species, while her mother was a Neanderthal, two ancient human species that went extinct tens of thousands of years ago. This is no longer a hypothesis or speculation, but a fact proven through genetics. At this point, many people may wonder, aren't we all human? That question is partly correct, but in reality, Homo sapiens, modern humans, are just one branch of the larger human family within the genus Homo. In the past, multiple human species existed on Earth, such as Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo erectus. Over time, only Homo sapiens survived and came to dominate the genus Homo to this day. The teenage girl from Siberia is therefore considered a very distant relative of ours. Further analysis revealed an equally surprising story about her parents' migrations. Neanderthals were known to have lived primarily in the west, while Denisovans inhabited regions farther east. During eastward migrations, Neanderthals encountered Denisovans and may also have come into contact with the ancestors of Homo sapiens. These encounters likely created opportunities for interspecies relationships to form, among them, the union that produced this young girl. The findings do not stop there. DNA evidence also shows that the girl's Denisovan father himself had a distant Neanderthal ancestor several generations back. Meanwhile, her mother belonged to a Neanderthal group originating from Western Europe. These genetic clues demonstrate that the two ancient human species were not completely isolated from one another, but instead interacted, met, and coexisted over extended periods of time. Other studies confirm that both Neanderthals and Denisovans survived until around 40,000 years ago. In fact, scientists have long known that species within the genus Homo interbred with one another. Genetic studies show that modern African populations carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA, while some other populations possess Denisovan DNA traces originating in Asia. This means that Homo sapiens, us, also interbred with other human species in the past. What makes this discovery truly exceptional, however, is the clear 50-50 genetic split. This is the first time science has identified an individual who was a direct offspring of two different ancient human species. According to Bense Viola, a member of the research team from the University of Toronto, the long bone fragments allowed researchers to estimate that the girl was around 13 years old or slightly older at the time of her death. You see, from an anonymous teenage girl lying quietly in a cold stone cave, the evolutionary history of humankind has once again been rewritten. So if I say that this discovery not only shook the scientific community, but also reminds us that the origins of humanity are far more complex than what we were taught in textbooks, that would certainly not be an exaggeration, would it? Deadly liquid beneath burial cloth reveals the dark secrets of ancient China. China has long been known as a land filled with countless ancient tombs, stretching across thousands of years of history. From emperors and royal family members to nobles, each tomb was constructed as a miniature world, designed both to display power and to protect the secrets of the person buried within. What is striking, however, is that many of these tombs are not discovered through planned archaeological surveys, but instead come to light by sheer chance, during digging, road construction, or mining activities. This case was no different. A miner in Inner Mongolia, China, unexpectedly struck a strange structure while digging. Sensing that something was wrong, he immediately reported it to the authorities. Soon after, an archaeological team arrived, sealed off the site, and began a careful excavation. At first, everything proceeded smoothly. The coffin was cautiously opened, revealing the remains of a woman lying peacefully inside, covered by a layer of fabric that had deteriorated over time. To avoid damaging the artifacts, the archaeologists decided not to touch anything immediately and instead conducted X-ray imaging before any direct intervention. Everything appeared to be under control, but when they gently lifted the burial cloth, something no one expected happened. At that very moment, a strange liquid began to seep out from the area of the remains. A strong metallic odor instantly filled the space, causing several members of the team to feel dizzy and alarmed. Recognizing the danger, one expert immediately issued a warning and ordered everyone to evacuate the area at once. There was no argument or hesitation, because in archaeology, carelessness can cost lives. Later, a team member equipped with specialized protective gear returned to the site, approached the coffin, and carefully collected a sample of the liquid for testing. The results sent chills down everyone's spine. The substance was mercury, an extremely toxic material. Mercury can enter the body through inhalation, causing lung inflammation, difficulty breathing, and high fever. Prolonged exposure can lead to neurological damage, memory loss, seizures, and even death. Even inhaling a small amount in a confined space can result in severe consequences. Inside the enclosed environment of a tomb, the danger is multiplied many times over. So why would such a deadly substance be present in an ancient tomb? The answer lies in the mindset and beliefs of people in the past. Although mercury is poisonous, it also has powerful antibacterial properties and can preserve a body remarkably well. In addition, its toxic vapors acted as an invisible shield, killing tomb robbers who attempted to enter illegally. For this reason, mercury was often used in royal or high-ranking noble tombs. Based on the tomb's structure and the remaining evidence, researchers believe the grave may have belonged to a Liao dynasty princess from the Khitan-led dynasty that existed between 907 and 1125. Discovering a royal tomb in such a well-preserved condition is extremely rare, which also explains why such a large quantity of mercury was used. This discovery has also led many to immediately think of the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, where legends speak of entire rivers of mercury flowing around the burial chamber to protect the emperor in the afterlife. Even today, despite highly advanced excavation technology, experts have not dared to open that tomb due to the extreme risk posed by mercury. As you can see, beneath the ground lie not only historical relics, but also deadly traps carefully laid thousands of years ago. And every excavation forces humanity to confront not only history, but also the dangers deliberately left behind by ancient people to guard secrets they never wanted to be awakened. It is truly chilling and extraordinarily dangerous for archaeologists. The remains of an airplane, lost 45 years ago, discovered in the swamps of New Guinea. Amid the damp swamps and dense jungles of New Guinea, where time often swallows every trace of human presence, a strange discovery once sent shockwaves around the world. It was the discovery of a twin-engine passenger aircraft that had vanished nearly half a century earlier. Yet when it was found in 1985, it looked as if it had landed just the day before. The aircraft had disappeared for 45 years while flying from Manila, Philippines to the island of Mindanao. During all that time, there were no distress signals, no wreckage, and not a single trace. Then, in 1985, deep within the remote swamps of New Guinea, it was unexpectedly found lying silently, its silver surface gleaming under the sunlight. What was almost unbelievable was that the fuselage showed no dents, no rust, and the registration markings were still clearly visible, as if they had just been freshly painted. When authorities arrived at the site, a team of Indonesian military aviation experts was dispatched to investigate. From the very first glance, they sensed that something was seriously wrong. The aircraft's exterior was polished like a mirror, showing no signs of erosion by nature at all. Normally, one would expect that after 45 years sitting in a swamp, the aircraft doors would be heavily rusted and completely seized. But no, after a single light punch, the door opened smoothly, without even a creaking sound. When they stepped inside the cabin, the scene made everyone's skin crawl. There were no passengers, no crew members, no bodies, and no signs of panic. Yet on the seats, there were still paper cups, cigarette butts, and, most striking of all, newspapers dated the third week of January 1937, a Sunday. The paper was not yellowed. The ink remained sharp and clear, as if the newspapers had been placed there only hours earlier. Even more remarkably, inside an ashtray, investigators found an aromatic cigarette pack, a brand that had been popular in the 1930s but discontinued since World War II. The photographs and hairstyles in the newspapers clearly reflected the era of economic crisis and depression in the United States. Everything looked like a slice of time frozen in the middle of the 20th century. But what truly terrified the experts came next. Inside a thermal flask, the coffee was still hot, its aroma unmistakable, showing no signs of spoilage. No one could explain how, after 45 years, the liquid had remained unchanged. And it didn't stop there. When the technical systems were examined, the shock only deepened. The batteries were still fully charged. Turning a switch caused the cabin lights to come on. The fuel tanks were nearly full. The aircraft looked as though it had made an emergency landing only moments earlier, its landing gear touching down on the soft swamp ground and preventing any damage. In theory, it might even have been capable of flying again, just as it had nearly 50 years earlier. Because of these inexplicable details, the discovery site was quickly sealed off. No scientific explanation has ever convincingly answered the biggest question of all. How could an aircraft remain untouched by time after lying in such a harsh environment for 45 years? To this day, the airplane is still remembered as one of the most spine-chilling mysteries in aviation history. Pharaoh Amenhotep I's mummy, opened for the first time in 3,000 years. Have you ever wished there was a way to look into the past without touching it? Thanks to modern CT scanning technology, scientists have achieved what once seemed impossible, peering through the sacred wrappings to clearly see the form of an Egyptian pharaoh after more than 3,000 years of rest. The star of this story is Amenhotep I, a young and powerful ruler who still carries a great mystery that has yet to be explained. Through detailed CT images, Amenhotep I's face gradually emerges. He died at around 35 years old, stood about 5 feet 6 inches tall, and had unusually strong teeth compared to many other mummies. His facial features closely resemble his father's, with a narrow chin, small nose, curly hair, and a slightly prominent upper jaw. These details transform Amenhotep I from just a name carved on stone into a real person, someone who lived, ruled, and left a mark on ancient Egyptian history. What particularly caught researchers' attention lay beneath the wrappings. They discovered up to 30 carefully arranged amulets along with a finely crafted gold bracelet embedded with real gold beads. According to Zahi Hawass, former Egyptian Minister of Antiquities and lead author of the study, ancient Egyptians often wore gold bracelets around the waist, combined with amulets to protect the pharaoh in his journey to the afterlife. Imagine this. After thousands of years, these items still remain in their original positions, seemingly performing their duty of guarding the late king's soul. In fact, Amenhotep I's mummy was not unknown before. In 1881, French Egyptologist Gaston Maspero and his team discovered his remains, along with those of other royal mummies, in a tomb on the west bank of Thebes, now the Luxor area. Prior to that, the mummy had been relocated to a collective tomb between 1070 and 945 BCE after the original tomb had been raided by grave robbers. CT technology has also revealed the tragic history Amenhotep I endured. Images show that his neck was broken, his head had been severed, and his abdomen and limbs were heavily damaged. A clear sign of ancient tomb robbers who would stop at nothing to plunder treasures, regardless of the pharaoh's body. Later, priests of Amun during the 21st dynasty attempted to repair this damage. They carefully repositioned the separated limbs, used resin to bind them together, and applied additional layers of wrappings in a final effort to restore the deceased king's integrity. Thanks to this, Amenhotep I's mummy has survived almost intact to the present day. Yet the most puzzling question remains: the cause of his death. Even after thorough CT scans, scientists have found no signs of disease or injury sufficient to explain why Amenhotep I died so young. His death remains a mystery. Unlike most other pharaohs' mummies, which have long been unwrapped or extensively studied, Amenhotep I is one of the very few royal mummies almost untouched. This CT scan not only provides insight into his appearance and the original mummification rituals, but also reveals how his body was treated during the second reburial. And who knows, within the remaining layers of wrappings, history may still conceal a clue about the mysterious death of this pharaoh, waiting for humans to uncover it. World War II submarines, sunk over 80 years ago, found on the Baltic Sea floor. Deep beneath the icy waters of the Baltic Sea, where waves and storms have long erased traces of war, a remarkable discovery has recently emerged: the remains of two steel ghosts that once prowled the seas during World War II. These are not treasures of gold or forgotten ancient cities, but two Soviet submarines lying quietly for over 80 years on the seabed, carrying stories that have never fully been told. The discovery was made by a Russian underwater exploration team operating offshore from Kronstadt. Under the leadership of Team Captain Konstantin Bogdanov, the group embarked on a mission to locate missing submarines of the Soviet Baltic Fleet lost during World War II. Their targets were two SC-class submarines, designated S-406 and S-320, both sunk in 1943, at a time when naval warfare in the region was especially fierce. To pinpoint their locations, the team employed advanced sonar equipment. On the sonar screen, vague outlines gradually emerged, revealing the unmistakable shapes of the submarines. These signals sparked hope and marked a significant breakthrough in the mission to confirm the fate of vessels long believed lost forever. Soon after, experienced divers descended to a depth of about 148 feet to conduct direct inspections. The scene at the Baltic seabed was both chilling and haunting. The hulls, conning towers, control surfaces, and many other characteristic parts of the submarines were still remarkably recognizable. S-320 rested roughly 1 mile from Teuters Island, while S-406 was only about 1,640 feet away. Two submarines, two destinies, yet both shared the same end, sunk and abandoned in the deep for over 8 decades. What sent shivers down many spines were the traces of the crew's desperate struggles during the accidents. On S-406, divers discovered the conning tower hatch open, a clear indication that the crew had attempted to escape in a life-or-death moment. Whether they succeeded or what ultimately happened to them remains an unsolved mystery. The story of S-320 is even more tragic. The crew is believed to have tried to escape through the torpedo tube, a last resort in emergencies. Unfortunately, all efforts failed. The entire crew perished, leaving the submarine as a silent mass grave beneath the waves. Today, these two submarines are more than rusted metal. They are silent witnesses to the Soviet Navy's history in World War II. Every detail, every crack in the hull, tells a story of courage, sacrifice, and the harsh cost of war. Heartbreaking, yet profoundly moving, these underwater relics speak volumes to those who study them. 59 death spheres, forgotten for 400 years, beneath the Great Wall of China. Can you believe that right beneath the solemn stones of China's Great Wall, one of the greatest defensive structures in human history, there once lay a silent arsenal, dormant for hundreds of years? If you find that hard to believe, let me take you back in time to an excavation in the Badaling area, about 50 miles northwest of Beijing. There, archaeologists were stunned to discover 59 stone grenades neatly stored in the ruins of an ancient warehouse at the foot of the Great Wall. That number alone was enough to shock researchers because these were not ordinary stones. They were the death spheres of the Ming Dynasty. Experts date these stone grenades to roughly 400 years ago. Many of them bear inscriptions commanding soldiers to remain vigilant and strictly guard the section of the wall near Beijing. This indicates that these were not just weapons, but part of a well-organized, disciplined defensive system, always ready to repel invading enemies. What makes these grenades particularly remarkable is their simple yet deadly design. They were made from stone with a round hole drilled in the center to hold gunpowder. Once packed, the soldiers would seal the hole, ignite the fuse, and throw the grenade from above. Upon hitting the target, the grenade would explode, causing casualties and spreading fear among enemies. Their construction closely resembles other stone grenades previously found, suggesting this weapon type was common for soldiers defending the Great Wall during the Ming Dynasty. This discovery also sheds light on the incredible diversity of early gunpowder weapons between 1368 and 1644, the reign of the Ming Dynasty. Gunpowder was invented in China around the 10th century, and by the Ming period, the technology had advanced significantly and was widely applied in the military. Besides stone grenades, East Asian soldiers at the time also used weapons with names as colorful as flying rats, fire bricks, and iron-spiked fireballs. According to Shang Heng, a researcher at the Beijing Archaeological Institute, this is the first time a weapons warehouse has been discovered inside the Great Wall itself. He noted that these weapons were easy to make, convenient to use, and particularly suited to the wall's tall, narrow terrain. Soldiers could simply stand atop the wall and throw grenades directly down at enemy formations below. Though primitive, the gunpowder formula was designed to maximize explosive impact, often igniting surrounding materials. The combination of fire and loud explosions created a powerful psychological effect on the battlefield. In addition, archaeologists discovered the remains of a stone fortress near the wall, along with watchtowers, fire pits, kitchens, shovels, and numerous household items used by soldiers and their families. Altogether, these finds paint a vivid picture of the life, combat, and survival of Ming soldiers stationed on one of history's harshest defensive lines. So, do you think that beneath each stone of the Great Wall, there are still untold stories waiting to be awakened? I, for one, absolutely believe it. A 3,300-year-old head of hair and the buried beauty secrets of Amarna. Amid the arid sands of Egypt, some things seem so fragile that a light touch could send them scattering to the wind. Yet, at a cemetery near the ancient city of Amarna, archaeologists stumbled upon a discovery that startled everyone who heard about it. A human skull, and atop it, a nearly intact head of hair that had survived 3,300 years. This wasn't a meticulously mummified body, nor a gilded coffin. It was just an ordinary skeleton wrapped in a simple mat. And yet, the hair remained as if silently telling the story of ancient Egyptian women's beauty. To understand this discovery, we must go back to the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, around 1353 to 1335 BCE. Under his rule, Amarna was chosen as Egypt's new capital. Akhenaten is famous as a reformist pharaoh who dared to overhaul the religious system, shifting from worshipping the sun god Ra to revering Aten, the radiant sun disk. This period marked the birth of monotheistic worship and a major turning point in Egyptian history. However, after Akhenaten's death, Amarna was quickly abandoned, leaving behind remnants that lay undisturbed for millennia. The Amarna project was launched to study the ancient city comprehensively, from daily life and health to cultural practices. It was during this research that the 3,300-year-old hair was discovered. According to archaeologist Yolanda Boss, the woman who owned this hair had an elaborate hairstyle, with about 70 hair extensions attached at various points on her head. Just hearing the number gives a sense of the labor and care that went into her hairstyle. A key question still debated among researchers is whether this hairstyle was made specifically for burial, or if it was her everyday style during life. If it was her daily hairstyle, it shows that hair care and styling were incredibly important in the lives of Amarna women. Yolanda Boss also discovered different hairstyles on other skulls. Some had neatly braided brown hair looped around the ears, a style that seems to have been very popular in Amarna. Others had hair extensions in multiple colors, suggesting that hair from several people was combined to create wigs or extensions. In some cases, ancient Egyptians even used animal fat or grease to hold the hair in place, a kind of ancient hair gel. Another fascinating detail was the use of hair dye. One skull revealed hair with gray and reddish-orange hues, indicating that ancient Egyptians knew how to color their hair. Initial analysis suggests the dye was likely henna, a plant-based pigment used for hair coloring for over 6,000 years. Imagine this. While Europe had yet to conceptualize cosmetics, the Egyptians were already experimenting with beauty, styling, and coloring their hair as they wished. This adds yet another layer to our understanding of ancient Egyptian culture, showing that their beauty practices were far more sophisticated and inventive than many of us might have imagined. A Neolithic village discovered in France. In the expansive Marais de Saint-Gond archaeological site in northeastern France, researchers have uncovered important traces of a long-term settlement from the Neolithic period, shedding rare light on the social and economic organization of early human communities. This discovery marks a significant step forward in understanding how ancient people lived and organized their communities, especially 150 years after the first flintstones were discovered in the area. The prehistoric village came to light when archaeologists discovered a large ditch used to install a fence surrounding the settlement in Val de Marais, about 85 miles northwest of Paris. The site, estimated at approximately 2.5 acres, sits atop a hill and features a carefully planned layout. One notable find is a building with an apse-shaped vaulted roof, located near a 66 feet wide refuse pit, along with several wells, providing crucial evidence about the daily life and livelihood of the settlement's residents. Rémy Martineau, the lead archaeologist, emphasized that this discovery represents the final piece of the puzzle in understanding human life during the Neolithic period. According to him, the find offers deep insights into the economic, social, and territorial structures of ancient communities at Marais de Saint-Gond. The research team uncovered 15 large flint quarries and 135 underground pits, as well as traces of tools and agricultural structures. They also found megalithic posts and a system for polishing axes, showing that tool production had reached a highly developed level for the time. In addition to these tools and quarries, one particularly intriguing find was a small oval object made from mother of pearl, with 2 drilled holes, which may represent an early version of a button. This object dates to approximately 3,300 to 3,400 years ago and stands as evidence of the development of fine craftsmanship and the demand for personal attire and accessories in Neolithic society. All these discoveries are the result of a 20-year research program led by the French National Center for Scientific Research, in collaboration with other institutions including Archaeological Laboratory, Bourgogne-Franche-Comté University, and the French Ministry of Culture. The involvement of 50 researchers and archaeology students from France and abroad helped complete the excavation and analysis of these significant remains. Archaeologists hope that the remaining parts of the Marais de Saint-Gon site will be well preserved to allow for future excavations, which could continue to provide valuable clues about the lives and culture of ancient communities. It is fair to say that this discovery not only illuminates a distant past, but also provides profound insights into the development of human society from its earliest beginnings. A 2,300-year-old time portal beneath an ancient Egyptian temple. At a depth of nearly 65 feet underground, hidden beneath the ancient temple in the city of Taposiris Magna, a name that seems to step straight out of Egyptian mythology, a 4,430 feet long tunnel has just been excavated. But what makes this discovery a major breakthrough for the scientific community is not just its size or millennia-old age, but the purpose this tunnel once served. Do not imagine it as a hiding place for mummies or a lost treasure. The marvel lies in the advanced water management system that the ancient Egyptians quietly engineered over 2,000 years ago. It is astonishing to think that around 304 to 300 BCE, when many other civilizations were still struggling to channel water across rivers and lakes with rudimentary tools, the Egyptians at Taposiris Magna had already built a sophisticated underground irrigation system. A massive water conduit about 6.5 feet tall, buried 43 to 66 feet below the surface, running beneath the sacred temple dedicated to Osiris and Isis, 2 of the most revered deities in ancient Egyptian religion. According to archaeologist Kathleen Martinez, who leads the research team from the University of San Domingo, this tunnel represents a highly advanced technical achievement, clear evidence that knowledge of subterranean engineering, water pressure, and construction techniques had reached a level far beyond their time. What astonishes archaeologists even more is that the tunnel has remained intact for more than 2 millennia. This structure was not only a functional waterway, but also bore religious and political significance. Its location beneath a temple was deliberate, forming part of the sacred architectural complex at Taposiris Magna, a city founded by Pharaoh Ptolemy II Philadelphus in the 3rd century BCE. The city contained temples, tombs, and a population estimated between 15,000 and 20,000 people, living in a city where every stone carried sacred meaning. The Taposiris Magna water conduit is considered a perfect version of the Eupalinos tunnel, a technical marvel of ancient Greece. The fact that the Egyptians could replicate or even innovate on this Greek design demonstrates a profound cross-cultural exchange of engineering knowledge between Egypt and the Greco-Roman world during a period when the Mediterranean was the cradle of the most advanced civilizations. Archaeologists have also uncovered priceless artifacts inside the tunnel and surrounding sediment. Ancient pottery, household items, and a mysterious rectangular limestone block whose function remains unknown. Previous excavations in the area have revealed 2,000-year-old tombs, including mummies with gold tongues, busts of Cleopatra, 22 coins engraved with her portrait, gold amulets, and a headless granite statue, all hinting at a story yet to be fully told about this ancient city and Egypt's last powerful queen. Because of this, many researchers have boldly hypothesized that Taposiris Magna could be Cleopatra's final resting place, a place where the legendary queen may have sought to unite her life with Osiris in a ritual of immortal rebirth. With its strategic location, sacred architecture, and artifacts intimately connected to Cleopatra, Taposiris Magna is becoming the center of one of the most fascinating archaeological quests of the century. The question now is, if the ancient Egyptians could build a subterranean water system over a kilometer long, hidden beneath a temple, modeled on Greek techniques, and keep it intact for over 2,000 years, How many more secrets might still lie buried beneath Egypt's sands? Perhaps this site is not just an ancient city, but a gateway to a civilization whose story has yet to be fully told. Dear friends, as we conclude our journey through the 12 most mysterious and terrifying archaeological discoveries in the world, what remains is not just fear, but a profound sense of awe at what ancient humans once experienced. Those buried skeletons, structures, and traces are not merely relics. They are silent warnings from history. No matter how magnificent a civilization may be, it cannot escape the cycle of life and death. Some discoveries leave scientists baffled, while others remain sealed to this day, either too dangerous or too difficult to explain. And the most frightening part isn't what has already been uncovered. It's what still lies hidden deep beneath the earth, waiting for the day it will be awakened. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next adventures on the channel. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.